if you'd like to get us going.
Let's get going.
Okay, so we have
Virtual reality first.
we have with us Dr. Eric Lauber and Asma Rodwan. And they're here. We've been working with Dr. Lauber for some time now, looking at potential for virtual reality as an added program into our classes. He's been a great partner and consultant with us. We have some really neat ideas, and he's been gracious enough to offer to loan us some equipment to try it out before we jump in and buy something. So, and he was also gracious enough to offer to come and make a small demonstration tonight. So, Dr. Lauber, if you would.
Thank you. Since I can't get you all in helmets all at the same time, these headsets, I'm going to show you a video instead, and that'll give you an opportunity to kind of see where things are heading. This is a video that isn't reality at the moment. It's where things are headed pretty quickly. And so I just found it actually today and thought it'd be a good way to start our conversation. So I'll play this.
Wow. My school's awesome. We're always doing cool stuff like this. Like, did you know that dragonflies have been around for 300 million years? I just learned that. Whoa. Us kids have minds like sponges, which is we look at everything around us. We're naturally curious and love to dive in and figure out how things work. After all, it's what we're best at. You know, a true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. I didn't say that. Albert did. Follow me. Of course, you can't see imagination, but you can see what happens when it's let out. You can explore anywhere you want. It'll take you places you only ever dreamed of. And help you meet new people from all over the world. Where do you live? Like my best friend Alice. She's from Australia. I think it's pretty early there, so she's probably sleeping.
Sydney, Australia is 19 hours ahead of San Francisco, California. Local time is 5:30 a.m.
That's so. Thanks, Dot. That was Dot, my AI assistant. We've all got one. They go everywhere with us, helping us learn and explore.
Hey, Millie, I know you're busy, but your history project on Madame Curie is due in 17 hours. I'll remind you again later.
Okay. I don't really know what I'd do without her. Where was I? Oh yeah, learning and exploring. Sometimes the answers aren't right there in front of you. You have to dig a little. Look at things in different ways. Because there's usually more than one way to solve a problem. Oh wow. Guess what? There will always be problems to be solved. Luckily, we're really good at that. My teacher, Mrs. Garcia, says it's good to take everything at your own speed. And don't be afraid to get things wrong once in a while. After all, mistakes are proof that you're trying. She says sometimes it just takes a little time before it all makes sense. I feel that way when it comes to math. But I am getting better though. I've still got loads to learn and ways to go because it takes a long time to get educated. But I know that one day I'll be here, working, maybe even in a place like this. I don't really know what I want to be when I grow up. Perhaps that job doesn't even exist yet. Mrs. Garcia says that learning never really stops because life never stops teaching. That works for me because I'll never want to stop learning. I mean, why would you? No one knows what the world will really look like when I grow up. Definitely something more amazing than we've even got now. No matter what though, I know that when it's my turn to help make the world work, I'll be ready.
Hey, Millie.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, sweetie. How was school today?
Awesome. Did you know that dragonflies have been around for 300 million years?
I guess you learn something new every day.
I know.
So my apologies to those who didn't get to see it and they're on the Google call, but it's pretty impressive visually. But I also think pretty impressive from an educational perspective, what's coming down the pike. And I just thought I'd show you this in the background. I'll turn the volume off. This is Apple's new headset that's coming out. Just got announced today, actually. And they haven't released it yet, but it's $3,500, and they're just demoing some of the capabilities of the new AR XR headset from Apple, which will be a game changer just because it's Apple and they're very, very good at everything they do. It is rather expensive at the moment, but it has a lot of capabilities. I want to start with handouts. So I just thought I'd do a quick report on what we did in January and February. So we had an opportunity to invite 10 teachers at a time into the Technology and Entrepreneurship Center. And because I have a dozen of these headsets, we just put them in the headsets and said, learn and have fun and explore. And Asma was nice enough to prepare a whole slideshow, which we gave them a QR code for, and they had an opportunity to take notes on that if they wanted. What we're passing around is just some quick handouts. One is the actual survey we gave them afterwards, so you can see what questions we asked them before and afterwards. And then on the second page, and I don't know how many there are, so we only made 10, thinking we're only be a small committee. We asked some quick questions at the end of the experience, like, what's your view? Well, before they went in, we said, what's your view of cutting edge technology? And there was, 3, 4s, and 5s, 5 being the highest. And the blue versus the orange represent the change in the score from before we did the workshop till after we did the workshop. And so everybody went up. What did you know about VR in the classroom? All the orange bars went up. Easy to use. I mislabeled that. Easy to use is also a separate question. Question was instead, how beneficial do you think VR is in the classroom, and would you actively advocate using virtual reality in the classroom? And as you can see, all the blue numbers turned orange and went up in orange afterwards. More importantly, possibly, we gave them an opportunity to give us qualitative answers. So we just cut and paste, about 20 out of the 30 people responded. So we have those listed there. So you can see exactly what they said. And we asked them questions like, how might we improve this workshop? And do you have any additional comments or thoughts? And then on the last page, what was the most important thing you learned? And what are your main concerns or reservations about VR in the classroom? So we shared this with Mr. Heinrich a while back. We didn't do this because we have any particular agenda. I'm not advocating doing anything different than you're doing. All 3 kids went through the school system and love it. But as an educational technology specialist, I see some things coming down the pike that might have really profound implications in certain ways, not always, but in certain ways. And so we just want to open the door for some of the teachers to explore that. Just a quick summary. I don't know how fast this is all going to get into the classrooms. Every day I see new announcements. My daughter's undergraduate university, Arizona State University, just announced their entire intro biology is going to go virtual reality. I know that at IUP, we've taken a whole nursing program, and starting this fall, it will be entirely virtual reality. I know that ICTC has done virtual reality for a while with their electricity program. Oil rig people get trained on land before they have to go out and do something more dangerous on an oil rig. It's obviously the military has been in this space for quite a long time. Anytime there's a safety issue, anytime there's reusable chemicals, reusable things, anytime you want to do something repeatable, so for example, dissect a human, you want to cut a cadaver once, you can cut these things a million times and do it different ways, peel it back, and there's no blood, which I prefer. Just the possibilities are endless. And the teachers got a chance to explore some apps that we'd be able to load up onto our headsets and give us some feedback on that. But otherwise, I just wanted to share that we're available. Asma is a great resource. She also has been doing a lot of research into using AI in education. So I want you to know that if you go down that route, you should give us a call. And we'll help to talk that out too, because we think that's going to have a big implication. But other than that, we're just here to answer any questions you might have.
The feedback we got from the teachers is exciting. I think excitement would be the best word I would use to sum it all up. A couple of our teachers specifically at the secondary level are really, really gung-ho about, exploring this option. But we don't know what we don't know yet. So we're just dipping our toes in the pool, so to speak. So I'm eternally grateful for the help and guidance that they're offering to provide us. And I think what we're really just asking for is permission to explore this further, and see what options are out there. And and take Dr. Lauber and ASMA up on their offer to help and see what we can move forward. I mean, this could be a solution to a lot of different problems that are coming down the pike. Like chemistry labs being them dangerous chemicals. Experiencing that, or like Dr. Lauber said, experiments in biology, or there could even be applications for business and technology. And so there's the possibilities are limitless. And with this resource in our backyard, we just think it's a no-brainer to explore this further. So
The equipment that you have here, how does that interface with computers, or how does the interface work?
This is all Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So Randy gave me the Wi-Fi. Actually, it's open. I just connected the Wi-Fi and we're up and on. Now, there's questions. I wanted to actually hand out this because I think this. I'm trying to speed along this presentation. So I'll hand that out too. I'll just leave you one. There's a lot of issues still, and so I tried to write them out. And we had this conversation with some of the teachers as well. So how does it connect to Wi-Fi? So it goes through your internal Wi-Fi. But if you want to talk to the app developers or websites and servers, you have to go through the internet. And many of them won't run unless they've been validated. So you have to create an account, validate against the server, and those servers let you play their media with their app. And those are obvious concerns about privacy, et cetera, storing the data, where is it stored, et cetera. So there are basically two solutions out there. There are companies that are creating their own software, and they'll basically take over the operating system and run it as their own device. And those are companies, obviously, that are very compliant, very secure. They've built for education, and I believe that's part of the solution for them. The other solution is what we did in our tech centers. We just threw common apps, free apps, paid apps that everybody can play on our headset. And so therefore, these apps are sending data back to wherever those servers might be. And we didn't make them any super secure in any sense. But people have been working with this. A lot of elementary, junior high schools are exploring this. So it's a solution that's there. It's evolving. Apple's coming out with a brand new headset. MetaQuest just announced last week they're going to upgrade that to the MetaQuest 3. That white one is the MetaQuest 2. And that black one is $1,500. That's the MetaQuest Pro. And if you want to, I'll get into why and all the details of that. But essentially, the big difference is the black one has color cameras so that you can turn on the cameras and see the room at any point. In fact, you could do what was in the video where you could do a chemistry lab on a blank desk and see the desk and see the people, but there's a superimposition that's called AR, augmented reality, that occurs while you're looking through the color cameras. This older one doesn't have color cameras and it doesn't do that very well. So in the older one, you're pretty much locked into this space that the helmet creates. So you're in what we call virtual reality. You're in VR. But almost all the new sets are going to do both. They'll be AR. In fact, the Macintosh, the Apple one, has a dial. You can just dial it back and forth between AR and VR. That's the big thing that people, because nobody wants to be inside that for 20, 30, 50, 2 hours, 3 hours, 8 hours. Nobody wants to be locked into that. So the glasses are getting more lightweight, batteries are getting easier to run. They're becoming more like AR. And what's going to come down the pike is students will just wear these goggles, so to speak. Safety goggles is what they'll look like. And at any point, they can turn them into AR, or if they want, all the way into VR. Sorry, if you give me a start, I'll talk too long. I'll try to stop.
Is there a way that, how are we dipping our toe into this?
Well, Dr. Lauber has offered to lend us a few devices. We have to work with our next step. With your permission, we would get with Randy and his team, and we would look at how we make it all work and play nicely on our system and make sure that it can function. And then we get a couple of teachers, and I already have a couple of volunteers who are chomping at the bit to try to use this. We'd have to work with Mr. McElhinney at the senior high and get a space that's big, because as you see, health and safety is one of the issues here. You want to entertain yourself sometime, go online and look up people on VR hurting themselves. They'll like dive into walls and stuff. And it's a legitimate concern for kids, because when you're in there, it feels very real sometimes. So we have to get big open space where they can't trip over desks, so those kinds of things. So there's a little bit of work to do, but we're excited about doing it if board chooses to let us explore that opportunity.
If I can volunteer, we just started teaching a game development camp this week, as a matter of fact, and almost all the students are from Indiana. They'd already been in these headsets. And we offered them up to share. They just slapped them on and knew exactly what to do. Every single one has already been in these headsets.
Yeah.
Parents haven't.
Yeah, I'm less worried about the kids than our uses in education for them. So I certainly would support this. Does this need a motion?
Well, just for in order to borrow the equipment, I believe that would fall under the policies about donation, so we would, just enter some sort of
It'd be
agreement.
safer to make the motion.
Sure.
Yeah, and then to explore how the teachers would use this as an educational situation. We have the computer lab there at the old library site that I suspect is not, would be, that would be where I would think it would work, but I'm sure you guys can figure it out.
Yeah, I'll usually take them in at the gym for an hour.
Oh, okay.
Depends what you do.
Out in the middle of football.
Some things you just sit in a chair, some things you stand up, some things you move around. It all depends on what you do.
We'll stay out of that part, so let's push it and see what we can do with it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Is that all right? Ready? You good?
I think we have to.
Yeah.
This is where it's
It al-
going.
it already feels like we're behind. So
It does.
I suspect the 15 kids you had are way ahead of us right now.
They're very, very good with a lot of this.
Quick question, Eric. The quality of content, what was the concern there? What's the challenge? Do you think that's changing with the newer models, or what was that challenge?
Yeah, so when we did this in January, we only had the white ones. And to keep the cost down, Facebook, which is now called Meta, put small graphics cards in that really weren't very powerful. So all the content was very cartoony and flat. They put a better graphics card in there so you get better graphics. The Apple is a $3,500 device. I imagine it's got fantastic graphics, so that's what I meant by quality.
Okay.
As opposed to the actual content.
Right, content is out of this world. I mean,
Okay, because when you say quality of content, I was
I
read it as the
Yeah,
content
sorry,
was
yeah.
maybe not good, but okay.
I mean, you can ask the teachers if they thought it's all just gonna get better, but I think quantity might be an issue. Like, I'm not sure how much of a normal curriculum is available at the moment. I mean, nursing, biology, some of those things are completely covered right now. All the physics, I don't know. Notice I teach making the software, and so we're not teaching classes at IUP about how to teach with this stuff yet. So it's about as close as we get to that as a PhD student who's been exploring that as a project.
You would think the ex-associate dean would be on the front end of this, wouldn't you?
She was. She actually trained for some that are at IUP. These are all owned by the Technology Entrepreneurship Center. There's a different set that's actually at IUP that is used for the classes.
See if it's slap them now.
She
I
was
deserve
at-
Okay, great. Eric,
All
thank
right.
you.
Yeah, I don't think
Any other
Yeah.
questions?
Well, I once again really thank you for the help and the partnership and the guidance, because we're very needed as we explore this new world. So thank you very much.
Totally welcome.
Number two.
Well, we have some guests from the junior high school, so if you want to, we're going to go all over the place here.
Okay.
So, but we have Lane from Stuco,
What
I
number?
believe, that from the junior high, if you
Number
want to
one?
make a presentation. This is number one on non-agenda items, correct?
Okay, we'll start with Lane.
I got a full presentation real quick.
You have a what?
I got a full presentation real quick here.
You know, if we had virtual reality.
It would already be up, I can just turn it up.
Okay, it's up.
Did you give him the mic?
I'm sorry. Thank you.
No. Then he's gonna need to go over there so people
Thank you
can
for
see.
the opportunity to show you what Stuco's done this year. Please hold your, what?
You guys know I'm out here.
Why don't you come sit over here and sit at the table?
No, we wouldn't let those people come today.
And I'm sorry, I only had Lane's name on the list, so you guys want to introduce yourselves? So,
I'm John Cross. I was the previous SUCO president this year for SUCO, and Sydney.
Hi, I'm Sydney Adamski. I've been working on the bullying survey, which is one of the things that we'll be covering in the presentation. So.
Thank you.
To start off, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to show you what Stuco has done this year. Please hold your comments and questions till the end.
So on our first slide, we have our initiative for the whole school field trip that we did this year. We sold tickets from April 21st to May 9th. In total, we sold 447 tickets there, and 100 people went to Blue Spruce. 23 went to the IJHS volleyball in the gym, and 21 people went to the movie. 31 people went to the Olympics at the senior high. 6 went to the dance, and 122 people went for bowling in Mohawk Lanes. And finally, 150 people went to Go Bonkers. Unfortunately, 191 people had to be sent to the study hall because they did not turn in their permission slips or had a disciplinary recommendation. But in general, we feel this field trip went very smoothly, and we'd like to do this again next year. There are some photos taken at it. Our next slide is about the Spirit Week that happened during the last week of school. It was the last one of the school year, and it was created by Billy Taylor and Ryland Blystone. The theme was focused around friendly competition. There was a different theme each day, and it was easily considered one of the best Spirit Weeks of the year, and it was a great way to finish the year off.
We've done many activities sponsored by Tobacco Resistant Adagio Health. These activities have included going to the PA Capitol to visit the PA Capitol and talk with legislators. We went to a True Leadership Conference in Irwin where we talked about mental health. We went to a Pirates game to celebrate our achievements this year, and we had a True Storm in the cafeteria. True also helped in the whole school field trip by sponsoring some of the events at Blue Spruce. They had a Kona ice truck there. These are some of the photos from the Capitol that we took. Student Council appreciates the secretaries and everything they do for us, so we partnered up with Mr. Harrington to make them plaques to show them how much we appreciate them. Now I'll turn this over to Sydney so she can put the data on the bullying survey. Oh, sorry.
So this slide is about the farewell party we had for our student teacher, Ms. Armstrong. It was on May 5th, and it was during Flex. We had a few girls from our team to plan this without her knowing. Stuco hosted a potluck and made guessing games about what she likes. And we are excited to see what the future holds for her. Ellery Van Hoos, William Mill, Finley Stewart, and Laura Kepich were the ones who planned this.
So this year, we've been working on a bullying survey. So this has been going on since the very start of the year. And recently we sent out the second survey, which was a follow-up to the first one. So the following slides analyze the data from the previous survey that we sent out and compares it with the survey from October. This survey was sent out in February and provides further insight to bullying at the junior high. So most people think that they know what bullying is, but don't clearly understand what is considered bullying. Is it bullying if someone says something rude or calls you by a name? Or is it bullying if I'm nicely teasing a friend? Does bullying have to happen once or be repetitive? These are some of the questions that may be asked by students when talking about bullying. The definition on the presentation is provided by the NCAB, the National Center Against Bullying. It helps give a clear idea of what bullying is. It says bullying is an ongoing and deliberate misuse of power in relationships through repeated verbal, physical, and or social behavior that intends to cause physical, social, and or psychological harm. It can involve an individual or a group misusing their power or perceived power over one or more persons who feel unable to stop it from happening. This question was asked on the October survey. The survey said that 49% of participants have not experienced bullying, while the other 51% has experienced bullying at some point in their life. The new data states that 49.9% of participants have not experienced bullying, while their 50.1% experienced bullying. As you can see, over 4 months, there was a slight increase to students saying that they have not been bullied, but there's also a few more students that took the survey this time which we can attribute to the change in numbers. This question was asked to identify what portion of the student body participated in the previous survey. As you can see, 85.5% of the people who took the survey this time participated in the previous survey, with the other 14.5% took the survey for the first time. And this helped give us a better idea of what percentage of the students were new, what weren't, and how this might affect the data whenever we were analyzing it. Please note that the number of students who answered this question, so the survey ended after the past two questions. So if students answered yes that they have been bullied, they moved on to the questions later in the survey, which helped us to narrow down when, how, and where students were bullied. So this question was another repeat question, and we predicted a dramatic change in numbers due to the continuation of the school year. This 24.8% change in the amount of bullied participants and 24.6% change in the amount of non-bullied participants is a negative change, but it was one that was anticipated and was not as bad as we originally perceived it to be. So this was another repeat question. We were trying to identify the type of bullying and when it happened. This also shows that people who did not take the survey in October were possibly bullied over the summer, and that again might have been attributed to the change in participants in the survey. So this question was predicted to have little to no change. As we anticipated, there was only a small change with the percentage, with 37.3% saying that they were not bullied last school year and 62.7% saying they were. In the newest survey, both numbers were changed from 37.3 to 47% saying they were not bullied and 62.7 to 66% saying they were. This question was hard to interpret because we cannot tell for sure the reason why the number changed, but with a lower percentage saying they were bullied, since we can assume that some of the events from the previous action plan were effective. We believe that this question may have been misunderstood. Some students might have thought that this meant that they have been bullied in the last few months and not that the bullying has started in the months since the previous survey. On this slide, the question asks if you have been bullied, and if so, was it consistent bullying? 57.4% said yes, and 42.6% said no. These responses were taken out of 235 people. This question dissected what was the most common form of bullying in our school. Like the previous survey, verbal abuse was first, with physical abuse being second, and final cyberbullying being the least common. This was one of the percentages that we would hope would not increase, and it did slightly, but we also have to account for the change in number of responses, with an increase of 7 responses and a change of about 5.9% in the amount of people who have witnessed bullying. This was a repeat question, with the only change coming in the elimination of an open-ended question and the addition of an on-the-bus option. Regarding the data, there was little to no change. We included 2 open-ended questions, one asking if the previous action plan was effective and one asking for suggestions. The first question provided a variety of answers from I don't know to clear yeses and nos, but a majority were I don't know and nos. Above are some quotes from the open-ended question asking what suggestions people might have. The final action plan we came up with was based on this question and includes the following activities: introducing stare monitors, having assemblies on the home and what some people might be going through, as well as defense against bullies and bullying, an increase in use of cameras, hall monitors, less focus on awareness instead of action. And one thing we noticed this time was a large push for consequence. Greater consequence. If you have any questions, I'd be open to answering them.
So something I just want to add, I just want to commend our student council organization, because as you know, they brought this information to you guys prior, and really, not just shared information about a problem we were having, but also had an action plan in regards to that. So we have implemented all those steps of the action plan with their help, with community help, with parent help. And I do think we've seen a noticeable change, and we're going to continue to do that. Obviously, change doesn't happen overnight, we know that, but with students like this and the students that we have back at school and getting other students involved, not just our student council, we're branching off into different organizations with our school to try to help with this. So I do feel positive that we're going to be able to make some changes moving forward. So just wanted to thank for that.
On May 16th, we hosted Stuco elections, where we voted to elect our next president and vice president. The winners for president were me, and the winner for vice president was Adley Shaw. The people who ran for president included me and Ellie Coleman, and the people who ran for vice president included Bowen Blystone, Adley Shaw, Lena Magolis, and Claire Wigner. These are some of the responsibilities of the student council. We go to the radio station monthly. We change the marquee when needed. We maintain Hannah's closet. We go to the morning announcements every morning. We clean the microwaves. We take morning attendance with our homeroom managers. We had ambassadors to greet the new students. We had 13 to 15 people greeted this year.
All right, so our next slide is about the baseball and softball team that Stuco will be trying to start next year. They're trying to start a softball team because they're trying to make a more active and competitive student population, and are also trying to get students involved in healthy activities. There will be 11 people on a team, and there will be tryouts. There will be a meeting with all of student council. If it gets approved by student council, then it will go to administration for a meeting. If approved by administration, it will then come back to the school board for approval. We'd also like to have a softball and baseball booster to help us with funding. We would do fundraisers like a bake sale, bracelets in the cafeteria, a basket raffle, and wiffle ball tournament to fund money for it. This initiative is being sponsored by Billy, Sophia, Tenley, and Bowen and Dan Rowan. Dan Rowan is the athletic director that wants to help us with our initiative. Coaches will decide who makes teams by skill level of 1 through 5, 1 meaning non-experienced and 5 meaning experienced. We want a booster so we will have money to get a fund going, so we can pay for busing, jerseys, equipment, and etc. There will only be 11 people because any more people won't get an equal amount of playing time or won't play at all. We have 11 because just in case someone gets hurt, we'll still have 1 extra, but everyone will still play. But it's good just to have someone sit out to catch a break and be ready for next inning.
Let me ask a question on that. Where are you playing?
This is personally not my initiative. I'm just presenting on behalf of Billy Taylor, who he's the head of this initiative. So I'm not entirely sure about that. Lane might know. I do not know. Okay. Yeah, sadly we don't know that, but next year he'll hopefully be able to be here to answer your questions.
Mr. Rowe probably has a thought about that.
Yeah. You're going to do softball and baseball, not wiffle ball.
Yeah, just softball and baseball.
So you will need gloves and bats and things.
Mhm.
Have Dan talk to Joe Walkovich.
Joe
Walkovich. At the Optimist. They renew their equipment on a regular basis, and they might be able to provide not only the fields but also some old equipment.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so, and it's certainly on the softball side, I guess in baseball too. We do, Optimus do 13-year-old baseball, so
Okay.
yeah, so probably would cover this.
Yeah, and Dan's pretty plugged into the baseball community in town already,
Yeah,
so I think
yeah.
he probably has some sort of idea.
I'm just not sure that he's plugged into the Optimist, so if he has trouble with that, let me know.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
And Dan, just to yeah, come on in. Just to apologize for Mr. Rowan. He planned to be here tonight, but then the baseball team had their state playoff game today, so he's in
Yeah.
that game.
You haven't heard the score
I
yet?
have not.
They started at 4
I'll-
o'clock.
I'll text him and find out. So,
Good.
but so
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah,
See,
the community has lots of facilities, and this shouldn't be a problem. We just gotta have to make the arrangements.
Our next slide is about the Stuco alumni party we had. It took place on May 19th from 3 to 5 p.m. We shared ideas from the high school and the junior high to create new initiatives. We had pizza, chips, and drinks provided by student council. Some major takeaways were having more focused clubs, keep appreciating the people who help us, make sure to celebrate your accomplishments, make legacies, and split Stuco into multiple clubs. And this was planned and hosted by Caden Gallo.
Billy and Tenley are planning on sending out a mental health survey similar to the bullying survey, where we will analyze data and report to the administration. The data will be analyzed is the percentage of students currently struggling with their mental health, what we can do to help them with their mental health, and many more questions regarding mental health. Now I'll take any questions.
I'm sorry to jump the gun. I'm impressed with your bullying survey, and the difficulty of actually asking questions that have valid answers. So you're tuned that. I'm also interested in seeing how that changes year to year. So I hope you keep that up. And I know it's hard to do, but
Well, I won't be at the junior high next year, so I'm hoping some of the younger Stuco members will continue it. So
yeah. But it's having a long, 3 or 4 of these, so we can see a trend. Maybe we can help figure out what's working and what's not, and moving forward. So I think the data is useful. I'm glad they're moving on.
I would like to,
Congratulations on all you've done this year.
and I'd like to ask you to expand a little bit on the trip to the Capitol you guys took. You got to actually interact with some lawmakers.
Yes, we did. We got to sit down and meet with some of them, and we could advise on things for tobacco-resistant Adagio Health had talking points for us, and they gave us the talking points prior to us going in and meeting with the legislators, and we could advocate on initiatives, or we could just stay silent.
Sure. And then how was that experience? I mean, did you feel like the lawmakers were responsive and they?
Yes,
you think they
yes,
listened?
I believe that they were.
And that's a nice tie into our civics initiative too. We've been working very hard, as everyone here knows, to make civics part of the, not only the knowledge of civics, but the action in civics is one of the 3-pronged approach of Act 35. And so that's one of those excellent tie-ins there. So, and again, I agree with the rest of the committee. It's very impressive what you guys do. And I thank you for the leadership that you provided. And I look forward to more of it to come. All right.
Anything else from the audience? The principals are good? Are you proud of your kids?
Absolutely.
Great kids.
Thank you for coming. What's next?
Next up, sir, if you would, we have Mr. Keith Kunkelrod, who is here to present a research study that he would like to conduct in our schools. So, Mr. Kunkelrod, thank you for coming.
What number would that be?
That means number 2, we're back to agenda items. I think the other 2 were Mr. Rowan, who I will be pinch hitting for, and myself, so, or the.
You still make yourself go loud.
Yeah.
Rob, you misspelled his name.
Did I?
I caught that.
I apologize.
And then you did
I didn't catch it. I'm awful at name spelling.
So, like Mr. Heinrich said, I'm Keith Cookenbrod. I'm a doctoral student at IUP in the Administration Leadership Studies program. I am requesting to use Indiana School District as one of the sites. So I'm sending out site approval requests to every school district in the Aaron IU. And basically, the purpose of this study is to examine authentic leadership and the factors that influence change. All right, so specifically, I'm looking at building level leadership and their authentic leadership qualities that affect teachers' perception of change. And so the change agent that I'm studying is the implementation of STEM or STEAM curriculum. So this will be a survey sent out through email for K-12 teachers. It should take about 10 to 15 minutes of their time. There won't be any, in-building or any student data. All the responses will be confidential and housed within our system. And if anything is printed, it will be locked in my filing cabinet at home in my house. And of course, I'm gonna share the dissertation results with any school district that participates at the conclusion of the study as well. So what I passed around was basically the site approval request letter that I sent to Mr. Heinrich a few weeks ago. And then I also printed out, they don't look very pretty, but I printed out the survey questions from this study as well from Qualtrics. So in order to be a site, what I would need is a site approval letter from the district and then a list of teacher emails so that I can enter them into Qualtrics and then send them out the link to participate in the survey. Any teacher, actually every teacher that gets the survey will have an informed consent at the very beginning of that survey. If they continue on and they've given consent, they do not need to participate and they can stop at any time by just closing their browser. Any questions?
Your leadership survey, is that already, that's a published survey already, right? On
Yeah,
authentic
so
leadership.
that this study is using 2 already published surveys, the Authentic Leadership Questionnaire, which is very similar to the Transformational Questionnaire, and Gene Hall's Stages of Concern, which measures teachers' perception of change, basically. And there is a third study in there, and that's basically just the implementation of STEAM or STEM. It really has nothing to do with this study, but because that's the change agent, that's the third kind of part of the study. So I do have to do a pilot study at Bishop McCourt. I'm not including non-publics in this study, so I'm going to do Bishop McCourt and Divine Mercy.
Any objections? He's just asking for public information.
Correct.
Yeah, so-
Board
And
policy,
teacher- and
board
teacher
policy
surveys,
dictates
nothing.
that,
Yeah, I think
board
this
policy
is-
requires the board's approval. So
No, I said, but just to be
No
clear.
student data, no,
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah, just to be clear, he's not asking for anything that's protected.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Perfect. Make the motion and we'll go ahead. We'll bring it to the board and get an approval.
I appreciate it. Thank you so
Good
much.
luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Long road.
And on next Tuesday, after they officially approve it, I'll reach out and we'll get you going.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Sorry about the name.
No, you're good.
Okay, what's next?
Moving right along, we have
PCIT?
BCIT team is here. What is this? BCIT has been working on a curriculum revision, and they are here to present their finished product for board approval, and I am responsible for sharing it. So give me 1 second. Bring it up.
Okay, while Mr. Heinrich's bringing that up, I'm going to go ahead and just introduce everybody. I'm Eric Brocious, been at IHS a long time.
At least 2 weeks.
A little longer. Jan Brocious is with us. Pam DiStefano is online. We have Brian Schreier, Joe Lakaitis, Joe Perkovich, and Dave Sheeran could not be with us here tonight. So that's pretty much the team that's been working on this throughout this calendar year. And so we're here to kind of present our curriculum and what we have talked about and developmental changes. So basically, if you notice on the second slide there, our vision is to prepare all students for academic and career success by developing competent and responsible digital citizens who exhibit values and skills in business, computers, and information technology. All right, so that is something that we have focused on for years in our department. We have a lot of students that, post high school, either major in business or are directly affected with the skills that they're learning throughout our curriculum. And that was one of the things that, Mr. Heinrich had brought up to us, and we had worked on developing this curriculum to meet those goals as we go through. Real quick before I forget to baseball update, IHS wins 2-1, just so you guys know. All right.
Wow.
So
First ever state
first ever.
title.
We're moving on. Yeah.
So
So I
that's
thought
great.
I'd give you guys an update. I texted one of the parents while you guys were asking.
I tried to find it online, but I was blocked.
Well, my daughter's a senior, and there's a bunch of seniors on that team, so I just happen to be friends with a lot of those
Oh,
parents.
that's
So
great. What a great outcome. That's
yeah, it is good.
Real
So I
great.
just thought I'd share that with you. All right. So basically, one of the things that we talked about is what's the research behind what we're trying to do here, and we have several links there that we kind of build into this. Over 1 billion people using Microsoft Office worldwide. The digital skills that lead to higher wages, of course, and again, being one of the co-coordinators for the Career Readiness Program at the senior high, that is an essential part of what we're trying to do with our students post-high school, whether it be college, workforce, military, whatever we're trying to do, those are some things we're looking at. It's the number 3 rated skill for any employer is computer skills. And then, of course, computer skills is a top 2 skill for energy firms, throughout the United States and around the world. So those are some things there.
Those are all, I'm sorry to interrupt. Those are all active links that the committee can look at.
Yes.
Between now
Yeah.
and next Monday.
Yeah, so those are there. You can review some of those things and what drove us to our decision-making process for this curriculum here. As far as, senior high, and I'll talk directly about all of them, and then if you have any questions, we can go to our team here. If you look, some of the strengths in the senior high, like I said, I've been at IHS for 26 years. So one of the things as being not only a high school teacher, but as a local business owner here, we've tried to develop and grow our skill content to our students and everything that we're teaching there to help them post-high school, whether it be college, whether it be workforce, whatever it might be. So number one, our course offerings are comprehensive. No matter what business courses you're taking, whether you're going into our computer science, whatever that might be. Industry level computer programs are being taught. Upper level computer technologies are taught. Staff have a wide range of skills and expertise. Increased number of computer science courses offered over the past few years. And of course, our AP offerings in our computer science. And really, like if we look at some weaknesses, students' lack of ability to troubleshoot computer hardware. We really don't have a course per se that actually teaches kids how to jump in and troubleshoot hardware and operating systems and things like that. So if we had any type of weakness, I would say that would be one area that we would have. And then, of course, one of the other things we looked at is the need and the demand of students for additional computer science courses. What makes it difficult there is we have a limited number of people there. So, of course, trying to offer more course selections makes it difficult in our scheduled day. If you look at the junior high, again, strengths there, broad variety of business and computer concepts and skills being taught, the ability to teach to diverse learners, enrichment activities for gifted learners. Staff have a wide range of skills and expertise, just like the senior high. All right. And then, of course, getting into those mastery level concepts, that, again, at the junior high level, that can be difficult at times. So that's one of the things where, if we were looking at a weakness, that may be one there. Limited peer-to-peer learning, of course, and then computer concept course title change to BCIT. That was one of the things, talking with our junior high team, we thought that may be a little bit better choice of titling for that particular course. All right, so if you look at basically our evidence, and this is kind of, if you're looking through and you have all of the curriculums that have been provided to you as you go through, it has all of those built in there for each of the grade levels that you can see and all the different courses.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so you'll see the scope and sequence as the students come through, as they develop through K to 3, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, and of course 9 to 12. And you'll see all the various course offerings that our students will have access to in that level, as far as that goes. Any questions so far about anything before I continue? Any questions so far?
I think we're good to go.
Okay, so basically if, on the next slide there, and of course, when Mr. Heinrich gets back, as far as our planned curriculums go through, like I said, we spent the entire year, we met numerous times, going through, looking at all of our courses, content and material that's going to be taught, and then of course, any of the supplemental materials that we would need that would go along with those courses. And again, if you look at the different layouts as far as the courses go by grade level, and then of course you see all the course breakdown at the senior high level as far as that goes. The one thing I did want to point out to you, and if you look at the slide, and we have a former student of ours, Melanie Obitz, but how do you say her last name again, Gene? I don't know. But I just noticed Melanie Obitz was a student of ours, and again, you'll see that she published an amazing article that reflected a bunch of teachers across our district, her experience, her experience at ISD, and then of course, her owning her own business and the skills that she learned, and she kind of highlighted a little bit through the BCI department and what she had learned through her studies there. We could probably play that real quick.
Zoom in for the meeting. Those courses are paramount, whether people think they're going into business or not. I went to IUP for an undergrad in elementary education, and I was in that field for nearly, 17 years before I pivoted to running my own business. And the courses were so helpful for all of it. Even the first 17 years when I wasn't technically in a business setting. And I mean, I was telling my parents about how the year that the school store opened was the year that I was in your class. And I also remember John Allen Snyder was in that class as well. And it was super small. There were only 6 of us. And we started the school store, hadn't existed before. And so we were learning from you, obviously. Well, how do we even know what to sell? And you would bring in catalogs, and we were looking at what we would sell and based on what we thought. But then we learned we have to listen to the customer. And then we would track what things were being sold. And so that's how we knew what people wanted. We put advertisements in the school newspaper. We had advertisements in the cafeteria. I mean, all of these things of learning what our customers wanted and then iterating and then speaking directly to them. I use all of that constantly in what I'm building right now in my business. So anyway, what you do is so meaningful, and it lasts forever. I mean, it lasts. It just keeps on going.
So again, that's one of the things, and again, I think that's what we've tried to do with our BCIT curriculum is to try to get our students to that level, whether it's somebody that eventually decides to own their own business, or whether they're working for a business, or in so many different careers out there. We're trying to give our students the skill set and the knowledge available to be successful once they leave ISD. So that's one of the things there. One of the last slides there, you'll see we basically have a budget breakdown of each of the different course areas and costs as far as materials that we would use in those classes. I know that was something that Mr. Heinrich had talked to us about. So we went through, we met with some different vendors for materials and things like that. And so we got the cost estimates for those materials that we would use in those classes as far as that goes. And I think that's about it. So any other questions after all of that information?
Yes? Not a single question. Rob, this is budgeted at 61,000. We have money in our budget for curriculum.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How many other curriculums are coming in?
Well, we just delayed the other one that was scheduled this year, so we have plenty of money to pay for, I think everything that they're asking for here, and that's over 5 years. So $61,000 for over 5 years is actually not too bad, sir,
Yeah. that's
all
cheaper-
things considered.
it's cheaper than musical instruments.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that too is, there's a lot of software or, online books and materials that we're using. So there would be some subscription costs, but that's a 5-year breakdown for that cost.
Yeah, the big change, and I want to applaud the team for, we asked them to do some pretty tough things because we looked at, some of the things that we have had in place here and asked them to think outside the box and solve some problems. One of the big problems, the board had, complained before that typing does not happen until 6th grade, and that's too late. We asked the team to come up with a solution for that, and we think that they have. That they've come up with this fun approach to typing at the elementary schools, where we will work it in that, a few minutes a day, the kids are practicing typing so that when they get to the junior high, they don't have these bad habits because they're technology natives. They already have the bad habits. I'm sure Mrs. Brocious and Mr. Lakaitis could talk to you about that all day. So we're trying to get them doing it the right way at the elementary level. And Mr. Perkovich, who is new to our district, did a great job joining the team. He's not actually a business teacher. He just plays one on TV. But he helped them out as a kind of a consultant because a lot of the library, he's a librarian at the elementary schools. That library cert covers a lot of the technology applications at the elementary level. So that was the fit in there. And they worked right together as a team and came up with this plan, and we definitely support this.
How does the typing work at the elementary school? What machinery do you use?
I'm going to let
Yep, so,
Mr. Perkovich talk about that.
we had, in the library, and I know with the STEM classes this year, kind of tried to implement typing a little bit more into what we do because, especially with the PSSAs going online this year, we wanted to make sure that they all had a little bit of a head start. And in that, we kind of realized, hey, this is something that we probably need to bump up the schedule a little bit earlier. The studies out there show that 2nd grade is kind of the sweet spot where they're developed physically enough and have the dexterity to start typing on keyboards. So that was where we had started off with that. And the kids type on their Chromebooks. The program, that Typing Club, it's all online. It's a kind of teacher-directed program where they can use it kind of however they want to. The nice thing about it is, say, like you're teaching social studies of the American Revolution, you can make up custom typing prompts about the American Revolution. So you get like cross-curricular activities. It's not just say, learn to type, learn to type, learn to type. And it's basically all just done in their Chromebooks. Whenever I was teaching it in library class this year, we needed the fingerboard covers. We would just use a sheet of paper. They slide their hands underneath and got to build that muscle memory so they learn where the keys are and can learn to type early. And then we can stop and get to 6th grade where they're doing the 27 word per minute, 2-finger search.
68 and you're doing 27 words a minute and spell check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did Mrs. Woods have access to that, Elizabeth Woods? Because my students in Gifted did it with her.
Yes.
And then they were like obsessed with it. It was a treat to get
Yeah.
on that. And then the other kids wanted to do it. So I will say in 3rd grade that they loved it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was one of the ones in our 4 or 5 buildings where we kind of compiled our group of different typing materials.
Yep.
Yeah, she
Okay.
was one that helped spread that.
Well,
out.
firsthand experience, they loved it in 3rd
Love to
grade.
hear it.
I tried to learn to type and found a Space Invaders program that dropped letters down at you, and you had to type them until you lost. So yeah, that was the only way that I got any better at it. I'm still not. It wasn't that successful. If they'd had it in 3rd grade, it would have been a lot better off. Is there anything else that you would do if resources weren't in trouble? Is there something else that you'd like to do for your kids?
We may at the junior high with the MTSS, I don't know if you guys maybe have that, but there may be in the next couple of years some opportunities for electives. We may, or we were told that, am I speaking to it or? Okay, so those might be some things we may need to come back to you and we probably won't wait the 5 years. We may be coming back and asking for maybe some things for electives for the junior high at least.
Yeah, my position, I want you to look ahead. I don't want to be 5 years behind. So if there's things coming up that you need, I encourage you to talk to Mr. Heinrich and get things started, so that we can get them on the table and get them looked at.
I want to take the class on troubleshooting the hardware. That way we don't have to call you.
There we go, yeah. That's
It's one chap that's turn it off and turn it back on. It's,
Unplug it, plug it back in.
Actually,
No, we unplug it, plug it back in.
Yeah.
Try everything else. then
We'll
we
try
plug
that.
Yeah, and remedial class would be, an evening class would be really useful for the board. Okay. But I do encourage you to look a little farther down on all this and not come back every 7 years with a major revision. So if we can, the rest of the board doesn't like to hear this because it means spending money, but.
But I think this is another area,
Yeah.
kind of like Eric was talking about, where we need to stay current.
Yeah.
And we definitely need to.
There's just a
stay
lot of
current because
technology
things change.
involved here. I mean, and
Well, and the buildings have a lot of technology.
Correct.
And I'm encouraged you can use the machinery we have in the elementary school. That we're not buying 200 new machines to make this work. So, and you're doing it for pennies. So that's wonderful.
yeah, and I think as our team, we, have tried to basically make sure we maximize our Chromebook use as far as senior high students. And then even in some of the labs we're using at the senior high, I mean, we just recently got some new hardware there. Randy's done an outstanding job in, keeping us up to date as far as that goes. So, we're just trying to, keep going and keep that technology moving forward because of course that helps our students post high school as well. So
I just want, I want to encourage you not to let the limitations of our financial and when we need to hear things, we need to hear it. Okay, and then, maybe we can't do it, but if we can, then we got to get it done.
you're saying don't be afraid to ask for money then.
No.
Yes.
My job is to make sure you ask for money.
Okay,
And
that's-
we don't turn around in 3 years and have some kid graduating that doesn't have the skill that she needs.
Right.
Okay, so, and then we have to justify it, and we have to put it in the budget and all this other stuff, but I don't want to do it 5 years late. Okay, so.
That's pretty much what we worked on all year. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why we got together numerous times and tried to work through to make sure that we were in the position that you were talking about there, that we were current and we were meeting all those guidelines, that Mr. Heinrich brought to us and kind of challenged us to make sure that we're moving ahead with those things. So,
And I'm thrilled to see a continuity between the buildings and the grades, that you build on these things. That's wonderful. It's so easy for us to have, 12th grades here and first grades here, and they don't connect, but they do.
and I really think even at the senior high level, I'll speak to, it's helped us because, the skills that they're learning at the junior high when they come to the senior high, and then we introduce our freshmen to FBLA, to the Future Business Leaders Group, we have had great success in FBLA as far as, our students competing at levels from things that they've learned, and then, they start learning more at the senior high. And like I said, again, we have had, like I said, I've been here 26 years and I've had tremendous success with Mr. Schreier and Mrs. DiStefano with that organization as well. So, yeah.
Very good. Anything else? Anything, folks? Okay, I appreciate you all coming in. It's nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Supporting this.
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you.
Does that need to be?
Board approved, yes.
Yes, sir. Okay, make it happen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next.
Next up, we have another update and possible. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Possible curriculum adoption or change, and that is the board's presentation on CKLA pilot. Last time we spoke, we looked at the middle year data and we were talking about how it was inconclusive. I promised that I would come back at the end of the year and give the board a little bit updated information, and then, if you don't grab them, and then make a recommendation. So the bad news is, I guess, is that the data is still somewhat inconclusive. We saw varying results, and both good and bad. We have some outstanding results in some classes, and we have some classes that just aren't as outstanding. We have 2 kindergarten classes that have 0 students well below basic, and 1 classroom that has 100% of their students at or above benchmark. We also have that same classroom where every single one of those students, you know what, they're probably going to need a little bit of sorting, but
Yeah.
We have another, that same class had every one of their students at or above typical growth, which has never happened. So that's exciting. In another classroom though, you know, it was only 53% of students at or above benchmark. So, so again, the results are mixed. I will say this, that when we looked at growth data, it seemed like the CKLA skills was a little bit more promising. However, we did see growth on the Wilson side as well. It just wasn't as significant. We looked at teacher data from last year, the pilot teachers that were using Wilson data from last year compared to their data this year. With a brand new program, you're supposed to see a dip. In fact, we saw the opposite. Those classes actually typically outpaced, not every single case, but on the vast majority of them outpaced their growth from last year, which is significant. And I'm going to try to go through this. Now what Justin's handing out is the slides that you can pour over the data a little bit. But just for those people at home.
This is available online.
I'm sorry?
This is available online.
It is available online. So if you look here, I broke the data down a few different ways. This is a straight up comparison between the Wilson scores and growth versus the pilot scores and growth. And this is kindergarten. And as you can see, the first two bars there, the blue is Wilson and the yellow is the pilot, which is CKLA skills. Pilot classes actually outpaced the Wilson classes in kindergarten across the district on growth. However, the Wilson classes had a little bit higher composite scores overall than the pilot teachers. So again, you can see we have a little bit mixed results, a little bit better achievement in the Wilson, but a little bit better growth with the CKLA pilot skills. Last time we spoke, if you remember, we were talking about possible reasons why we were seeing some of these different growth trends in Wilson too. Like for example, we overlaid what we call ECRI, which is enhanced core reading instruction practices over top of Wilson, which we hadn't had before, which we think has been very, very successful. It's, you know, that's why I think we've seen growth across the board. But here, when you look at these are the pilot teachers data compared to last year, foundations data from last year to skills data this year. And you can see the kindergarten teachers went from 66% of their students in first sound fluency to 83%, 75% last year in phoneme segmentation, 84% this year. Last year, foundations kindergarten was nonsense word fluency was only 59%. This year, we're at 89%. What also is important, and I included here for you to look at, is the scope and sequence of skills that are covered by CKLA versus Wilson, because the growth and achievement data you see in kindergarten, you're not going to see in first grade. And we asked a lot of questions about why that was. Well, the leading theory is, and I can't tell you 100% accuracy, but the leading theory is that the students that were coming into first grade came into the CKLA pilot with CKLA assuming that they had all of these things taught. And the first grade teachers had to fill those gaps in while they moved those kids forward, while the kindergarten didn't have to deal with that, which is one theory as to why the growth in kindergarten is better than the growth in first grade. But again, that's a theory. But I've included some of the skills there just so you can see the pacing difference. A lot of the skills that are taught in kindergarten in CKLA are not taught until much later in first grade in CKLA, which is why we're recommending this move, because it holds these students to a higher standard. It pushes them. It pushes our top, and then we'll still have that Wilson intervention to catch any of the students that are not successful. We have a whole army of teachers that are now trained in the Wilson intervention program. So we would have best of both worlds. The next few slides after each one, you'll see the teacher by teacher, and names have been removed so that, to protect the teachers, because I don't want to embarrass anyone or compare anyone. But so we randomized the teachers here and just put their data up. And again, we're looking at their data on the top is the pilot year, and then right below that, the same teacher's data from last year in foundations. The top two numbers, the blue numbers, we want to go up. The bottom, the red numbers, we want to go down. And you're going to see, like for teacher number 1, for example, they have 0 students well below benchmark, which is outstanding. That's very, very good. Last year was 24% of that same teacher's classroom was below benchmark. That's significant.
Is that the same?
14%.
I'm sorry, is that the same kids in the classroom?
No, they're different kids. They're
Okay,
different
so
kids.
Different kids, okay, but the same teacher on this one.
Yes, and this is kindergarten. This is the kindergarten skills teacher 1 versus it's above and below. So did I read the wrong number?
Yeah, you said 24 instead of 14, right?
This one's
24 is
Below
below.
benchmark?
Oh, I'm talking about the composite score. If you look at the end of year at the
Oh,
top,
okay. All right.
there's a 0 there. And if you look at that same teacher last year had 24% of their students below benchmark.
Yeah.
Now it's worth sharing, and that's why we put it on here, because that kind of growth is atypical given a change like this. But it's happened. It happened with teacher 1. It also happened with teacher 2. You'll see that the results, teacher 3 has 16% of the students below benchmark, and teacher 4 has 26% of the teacher, and actually went the wrong way. But that's what I'm telling you. You can see that there's some inconsistencies here.
Were these in the same building or different buildings?
There were two teachers from there's 2 East Pike teachers and 2 Ben Franklin teachers. So, and I randomized them to protect the innocent, So, but there's what we
But
have.
There was no difference across buildings when you looked at them.
As far as demographics, or what a
Yeah,
difference?
And scores
Oh, there's a tremendous score. There's a tremendous difference, yes.
by building, not just by.
There's a
teacher.
significant difference by building, absolutely.
And what do you attribute that to?
Well, we're looking into it. I don't really know. I
Because if
think
they're
it's
using the same,
they're using the same curriculum, using the same tools. They have relatively the same kids. I mean, the demographics are pretty level. And for whatever reason, East Pike has outperformed Ben Franklin over the past few years, and we're working on it. We believe that it's there's many different contributions that go into that, but I don't have a solid answer for you as to why.
I just wondered if you were seeing it that way.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily in every grade level or in every class review. We have some teachers at Ben Franklin their data is off the charts good. So again, I think it really comes down to could be fidelity, it could be classroom management, it could be any number of things, but we're looking into it.
If I'm looking at these right, in teacher 1, it's 24% is well below the beginning of the year, and teacher's at 0 at the end of the year.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct? So if you look across the board, that's pretty much, there's always a downturn, except for teacher 4. But teacher 4 starts off with 65% of the kids at above baseline. That's the only one that's counterflow. All the other 7 are have some positive improvement, some spectacular and some just barely, but still.
Yes, sir.
an improvement.
And that's what I'm saying, it's inconclusive. For the most part, we've seen growth. For the most part, we've seen things trending in the right direction, but then there's always 1 or 2 outliers that just seem to, raise the question, is this, can I say with 100%, this is the answer? And
Yeah, but
there's too many variables.
But on teacher 4, that's a very unusual class.
I'm sorry, that's a what?
That's a very unusual class, of 65% and the 0, 6, and 30%.
It is indeed.
It's, you got a bunch of geniuses in there, and then you got 30% of the kids that aren't reading at all. So, I mean, it seems like an odd.
Very diverse,
Yes,
top
yeah,
one.
nothing in the middle. So, it's unlikely that you're gonna take 65% and take that to 70 or 80%. So I guess what I'm saying is that the majority of these are moving in the right direction.
Correct.
And some spectacular and some just barely.
Correct.
And that's the only one that seems an outlier, but when you look a little bit deeper into those numbers, it's a bizarre class.
You don't know what the makeup was either. It could be there were a lot of learning support. It could be, just sort of the makeup
Yeah,
of it.
yeah,
So
yeah. But when I look at these 8 scores, I'm encouraged to stay with the program. Am I misinterpreting that?
No, you're not misinterpreting at all. That's our recommendation. At the end, I don't want to spoil the end for you, but we are recommending we move forward with this because of some of these data trends that we've seen, and the administrative team has met about it. We've looked at it, 100 different ways, and there are some question marks, but we believe this is the right thing to do. And about 70% of the teachers, 65% of all the teachers in the district, we asked every teacher K-2 basically voted for their support of this program. There were 4 teachers that said, and I'm just jumping all the way to the end, there's 4 teachers that said, I don't really like either program. And I said, well, you got to pick. And if they had to pick, they said they would support CKLA, but they didn't want to go on record as saying so. So fair enough. So if that doesn't include the administrators who were involved in this pilot too, and all the administrators vote that we would want to move in this direction. So if you take that into account, it's over 70% of the people involved are supporting this move. And, and again, I think it's because we get the best of both worlds. If Dr. Runge was here, he would tell you that we would expect to see a bigger dip in a lot of this data, and the fact that it's on par with a program we've been running for 4 years compared to a program we've been running for 9.5 months, I think that speaks volumes as the, how to support the thing. But again, there's been pretty good data on the Wilson side too. So it's not a perfect science.
So your intention would be to keep Wilson in your back pocket.
Well, Wilson is actually designed to be an intervention program, sir. So we actually got it. If you remember 4.5 years ago, we brought in Wilson. We had benchmark reading in place, and Wilson was supposed to be a supplement to the skills portion of that instruction because benchmark lacked that skills instruction. Well, then since we got rid of benchmark because it really didn't align to the structured literacy and science behind reading, and we replaced that with CKLA, and this CKLA replaced benchmark. Now we want to replace Wilson skills with CKLA skills and move Wilson to the intervention where it belongs. So we would get the best of both worlds. We get that CKLA rigorous program, high expectations, content rich, and then we get the Wilson to back them up. So just quickly, I think Dr. Price has her hand up. Dr. Price?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I am just wanting to reiterate something that you just said, and that is that Wilson is intentionally paced slower because it is designed as an intervention program, not as a curriculum, and intentionally for classroom instruction for everyone. So I think, if we were to retain Wilson, then you really are, this is the slide you need to have up. Thank you. This is, these are the skills that, if you go back to kindergarten, kindergarten in foundations is not covering a sufficient number of skills. And, the research is showing that these skills on the right, the CKLA skills, listed here, are ones that need to be being pushed in kindergarten rather than holding back and targeting a smaller subset of phonological awareness and phonics skills. So, CKLA is going to be the better one to establish foundational skills as kids head into first grade. And of course, having foundations and having teachers who are trained on foundations means that you can indeed use that to go support students in a different way who are not making the sufficient amount of progress throughout that kindergarten year. And the same goes for second and third grade as well. So anyway, I just wanted to reiterate that. I don't think these data look bad at all. I think these data look pretty amazing to me, especially given that you have teachers who are implementing something for the first time. that it looks crazy good, and that fourth teacher, I think there might be a number of different things going on there, but the bimodal nature of that class to begin with is odd.
Sure. Thank you. And it is worth mentioning too that that's really why this pilot started, was we were noticing the effects of that Wilson not moving fast enough, which is why it was brought to our attention, which is like, look, we are never going to get to our goal of 80% of students that are above benchmark if we're not teaching them the skills that we're assessing. So we use Acadian's benchmarking tool that's testing them on skills that they haven't even been taught yet because Wilson moves too slowly, because it's really not designed to be that core program. So it's, so I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Price. That's spot on. So as we move forward, and I will go to first grade, we didn't see as good as solid results in first grade, but again, they were somewhat in the same ballpark with Wilson. And again, they didn't have to deal, or they had to deal with an added problem of catching up from that giant skills gap that the other teachers didn't have in kindergarten anyway. As we move
Now,
through,
none of the first graders ever had this before.
correct.
So they're like parachuting into an island in the middle of this thing. So you'd expect to see the Ks next year being substantially more solid.
Correct.
Those few kids, because it was only 2 classes per grade
Yeah,
level.
but they have
Yeah.
friends.
They're not teaching.
Yeah, okay. I understand.
The results on the teacher pilot were, again, somewhat mixed. We saw the blue numbers going in the right direction for the most part. The red numbers are still higher than we would like. But again, if you see that, 56 for teacher number 2, 56% of the kids were well below benchmark. This year it's 29. That's a giant step in the right direction. And that's, relatively consistent throughout the data, that the blue numbers are trending in the right direction from one year to the next. Now, if they were using the same program, you would expect to see this. Because this is a different program, this is not something we expected to see, and that's why we're bringing it to your attention as one of the things to consider. Second grade, actually, now this is as a caveat next to this one. This data does not include one teacher that was in a pilot because that teacher left half a year on maternity leave. So if we include the substitutes data, second grade data doesn't look quite this good. It drops a little bit. However, if you take out the subs data, second grade full-time teachers in the pilot actually did better in the composition score and in the number of students at or above typical growth, which is outstanding.
Is this data without the substitute?
This is without the substitute teacher, but we included the substitute teacher on the breakdown.
The kids in kindergarten, teacher 1,
Yeah,
did they move ahead to grade 1 as a cohort and they're
They
in
will.
the same group?
I thought we were doing.
Or the students in grade 1 are mixed up mishmash of the kids from
They
kindergarten?
will at Ben Franklin, but
We're not doing that these days.
No, we are scared, we are mixing the group.
Because that's gonna mess up your data too.
Well,
That's
we're,
different.
I mean, we're into, I mixed mine up on the hope that we would move forward with CKOA skills. Then you would have kids in each of the homerooms that would have had the program previously, as opposed to just lumping kids together
I see,
in a,
yeah.
like a cohort, so to speak.
What you might want to consider though, Dawn, is to code them somehow just for this information so that when we get the information, we'll be able to see.
Yeah, and I know that Dr. McMasters and April and Shelley have talked about that too. I think April's online. April, that is in the plan to track these kids over the next couple of years? Are you still online?
I don't see April online.
Oh, she was on it. They had talked about that.
I think that would be a good idea to see to.
Correct. I think so too. So if you look at the teacher data here, in second grade, again, we went in the right direction in most areas, not all areas, but in most areas. So in conclusion, the staff, like we said, we polled the staff, the principals met with each and every staff member and had a conversation with them about whether or not they supported this or did not support this. The results are, like I said, 65% of the teachers involved supported the move to CKLA. I will say that most of the people who do not support are actually in kindergarten, where we saw the most growth, which is interesting, so it's a weird juxtaposition there. But 8 of the 10 teachers in kindergarten did not support the move at this time. However, we had talked about, well, do we want to recommend a different program for kindergarten? And the teachers and the lead teachers and the principals all agree that that's a bad idea, because we're basically creating that skills gap right out of the gate before they get to first grade that we're trying to avoid. So our recommendation is we adopt CKLA as our core. We move Wilson to tier 2, to that win time that we talk about all the time. The teachers are trained in it. We'll get the teachers training, in-person training. I got the quote for CKLA, and we're going to commit to that. We have ESSER's money that had been budgeted for whatever adoption we do. So the ESSER's money easily covers this. So it's not coming out of, it's not new money out of the budget or anything. And that will pay for both the adoption and the training. And like I said, that gives us the best of both worlds. So that's our recommendation. But of course, we work at the board's pleasure. So questions, concerns, ideas?
I'm waiting for an association to nod our head. Give me some clue what I'm supposed to say here.
I want to dig into it more, but if that's what the teachers want, I just hope, again, I've said this before, that you allow teachers to have the autonomy to teach. No matter what your curriculum is, they still have to be able to make some decisions based on the kids they have in the class.
Yep.
That's my only, and I get that there are some things you have to do with fidelity, but there are some things that if a teacher sees that a child needs something else, they should be able to provide it.
Absolutely.
That's
They have to be responsive. And we're going to get better at that. That actually, we just had a conversation about that with some teachers where, I don't know if I didn't communicate it well enough, but we give that lasagna speech where it's like, everybody's getting lasagna, but maybe you like a little bit of extra sausage in yours, or maybe you like Parmesan cheese and you like mozzarella cheese, whatever it is. But that's where the autonomy lies. Everybody's going to get these skills. Everybody has to have these certain outcomes that we're shooting for, but you have to
That's
be
the
able-
important thing, that they know by the end of kindergarten, these are the skills that need to be
Correct.
mastered for the majority. Not all
Correct.
kids are going to master them,
And
but the
how you
majority.
teach that, how you approach that, that's where
Right,
teaching
here are
magic
some
comes.
tools.
And
You
we
you
say-
give them the tools and let them.
Correct. And we say that the programs don't teach kids, teachers teach kids, so we have to let them be responsive to the students' needs. So yes, but we do need to do a better job communicating that expectation.
We had this conversation with Rob on the last in-service day, actually.
Yeah.
Three lead teachers and Rob
For
about
sure.
that.
For sure.
I like the quicker pace, and I suspect that sometimes you're end up teaching to the slowest kid in the classroom. This will keep you on track and get those kids additional help when they need it. But high expectations, I think, is the only way we're going to get these kids reading by third grade.
And also thinking about your gifted kids too, making sure that they're able to progress, that they're not held to this curriculum that they don't need. They get to move forward.
Absolutely.
Lisa has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Price.
Yeah, I would say that a different curriculum for kindergarten is definitely a bad idea. And so I second that. I will say that absolutely curriculum doesn't teach kids, teachers do, and teachers need the flexibility. I also think those decisions that teachers make need to continue to be data driven. And so using data to determine who needs something different, who needs more, who needs less of something, as long as there's data that points in the direction of what those needs are, absolutely. I also want to say that teachers are part of a continuum. So kindergarten is the start, but kindergarten teachers pass off those kids to first grade teachers. And those kids need to have the skills that the first grade teachers need them to have. Same thing with first grade. First grade needs to pass off kids to second grade, and they need to have certain skills that those second grade teachers need them to have. So all teachers operate within a continuum, and curriculum is definitely designed to ensure that each teacher can do their part during their time with those kids. And so that curriculum becomes pretty important. I think that's all I wanted to say. I'll raise my hand again if it's not.
Thank you, Dr. Price. And when we were talking about the data too, Mrs. Heidenthal brought up an interesting point about the spelling inventories. I don't know if you wanted to share that
Yeah,
anecdote with them.
I like data, so I like jump right in it. And I'm in first grade, so it did not show the growth that I wanted it to show. And I have just torn my data apart to where I wrote every single word every kid missed. So I could see, was this a pattern I didn't teach? Was this a sight word? Was this, what went wrong there? So I even sat down with one of the psychologists, April, and I went through all of my data, and there's nothing that it's pointing at specifically. It's just, I'm looking like, oh, okay, there's some vowel teams here and there, but I was disappointed with my data. So I'm always looking, how can I make it better? And last year I thought it was fluency, and I just hit that real hard this year, and then it didn't show it in the data. So, but I have to keep in mind, I did have some lower kids in the mix, and I have to remember that. And it was a new program year. So nothing went down, it just didn't show what I wanted it to show. But where it did show was the spelling inventory. And we noticed that right in January. I mean, beginning of the year, they're kind of all at the same spot because they all had the same instruction in kindergarten. But the other person and I that piloted the skills noticed a definite big difference in where our data was versus the foundation. And it's because they haven't been taught it yet. So because our kids were already taught, they were able to master that and already have that under their belts when the spelling inventory was given. So that is somewhere we did see a big growth.
Does this require a motion?
It sure does, sir. This is
Why
a
don't you
big-
bring it
this
to
is
the
a big-
board, and we'll have a discussion at the board level.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for coming.
Okay. It is cool. I'm sorry, sir.
I know, someday we'll get the answer. Go ahead.
It is lethargic. Oh, so we also have a presentation by the lead teachers and myself about another adoption we would like to bring to the board. The one missing piece that we've had for a long time now has been writing. We've been talking about it for 2 years now, and we put together a little SWAT team of lead teachers who happen to be, experts, well versed in writing instruction, to really dig into this and look at different programs and look at different approaches to the writing system. So everybody understands, CKLA has writing prompts and has writing activities in it, right? So it gets the practice. But we're talking about the actual approach to teaching writing as a system, so that all the teachers are using the same vocabulary and the same approach to all of those different writing activities, either in the curriculum or the ones that they develop themselves. So
Yeah,
turn it
go to the
over.
next slide. Yeah, so how did we arrive at this point is Rob appointed Lee and myself, as well as Lisa Friedoff, to the writing team, because we've been talking about this for several years now. And we checked a few other programs, and we kept coming back to Step Up. So we have been informed by Bonnie, who's the rep for the program, Voyager Sopris, and we saw one or two presentations from her. Two presentations from her. So what Step Up to Writing is it focuses heavily on writing, reading, comprehension, and vocabulary. And I just kind of mapped it out there, what the goal is, how we would instruct, the duration, and some of the advantages. We can go back to that, but I can talk about it kind of piece by piece. Go to the next one, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we all know that children don't simply learn to read just by reading, nor do they learn to write just by writing unless you're a skilled writer and author. So in the past few years, how we arrived at this is we've noticed a disconnect with what writing is versus what is teaching writing. So with CKLA, we know it's heavily nonfiction content areas. And what they expect the children to do is write a narrative prompt on the first week of school. Well, they haven't learned process writing. And in the second week or the second month of school, they expect them to do an opinion. So if nobody's ever taught them the three main types of writing, here we're at a loss. And we're expecting these kids to write, but nobody's instructed them on what types of writing are. So we, backed up and we said, okay, so what grammar do you use in first grade or second grade? Well, there isn't a grammar program. They just maybe circle nouns or adjectives in Wilson. So we're missing something there. And I think we talked about this before maybe. So Rob offered that we take a free webinar by this Joan Sedita. And you're familiar with the Scarborough's rope. Well, this is the writing rope that she developed for effective writing instruction. And we just want you to know that this is highly recommended by Pam Kastner and the people at Patton, the consultants. The writing rope does align with Step Up. It's very similar to Scarborough's rope. And it works like the strands have to work together to be a secure rope. So all these pieces, and I'll talk about them further on too, are where you teach the different kinds of writing. So the critical, you shouldn't spend too much time as a teacher on just one of these. The goal is you spend time on all of them, and Step Up will help us do that. Let me go ahead to the next one. So some of the things that we like about the Step Up is I like it because it improves reading comprehension. And when you have the ability to write in conjunction with reading, obviously the kids are going to remember better. It's a predictor of academic success. And we all know that writing is important, but it's often neglected. So if you just want to take a look at those bullets there, the nice thing about this is the strategies can be integrated into any curriculum. It's heavily recommended now that you should write in all content areas. And you could use this if you're a science teacher. You could use this if you just teach math in fourth grade. And I could use it with CKLA and it would help me teach the students the types of writing. Or it could be used as standalone. It teaches each phase of writing and shows there's lots of models. There's lots of modeling. I tried it in the last 6 weeks of school with my WIN group, and we worked through and we did a lot together, and I modeled for them, and then they would do it. And the result was a great piece of writing. And I'm going to pass around this little handy, it goes K to 2 and 3 to 5, and this is a 3 to 5 sample, and the children would each get one of these. It's like a handy little resource, and it tells you the different units that they teach. And then I also have some printouts. These would be Blackline Masters, and all of those things are things that I would have tried with my students. So one thing we know about CKLA too is it's very much nonfiction, and the nice thing I liked about this is there was some fiction too that I printed out and I used in WIN, and we would go back and we summarized and we did all those different types of reading strategies, cause and effect, main idea and supporting details. So as I was saying, writing gets neglected. We're really versed in the science of reading, and we know the components of effective reading there. But when the attention is focused on writing, many teachers aren't sure what to include. So what we've had is hodgepodge. Some people are using TPT resources. Some people are using what they think they know is best. Some people are doing what the person across the hall is doing because they share it. So the nice thing about this is if we would adopt it, you're using the same language in kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth grade. And it's consistent.
And I think what we liked about it is we had some teachers coming to us, and I think, we've been teaching for a while, so I'm very comfortable teaching writing, but there are some other ones that are, I don't know how to do this. And so we were like, oh, we need to give them, the support or whatever that they need. We do not want a scripted program, something that this is day one and another thing to put on our schedules. But what's nice about this is it's a framework that all of us, the same vocabulary, the same wording for this is what pre-writing looks like. This is what a final draft and what editing looks like. So we'll all be using it. But there are sample lessons for those that don't know how to model pre-writing. Whatever they need, it's there.
And it starts in kindergarten and they have a little character that introduces them. What's his name?
I can't remember.
Yeah, but it's cute and it's a nice way to kind of integrate it. And what's lacking with skills is kind of like, I feel like it would, cover it with this program because a lot of the teachers weren't happy with the kindergarten, the handwriting, I think it was, with skills.
Right.
But there are things that in this program that cover that.
Yeah, this actually aligns pretty close to what a lot of the teachers do already in their kindergarten writing, but it just makes it more uniform and everybody's saying the same thing. Everybody's teaching it the same way. Our approach would be every teacher, K to 5, gets this program, gets the training. It doesn't matter if you're a math teacher, if you're a science teacher, if you're a little bit of both. You're getting the program, you're getting the training, and that way you're practicing the same routines and the same skills, whether you're writing about art or whether you're writing about CKLA, so.
And I just highlighted some things that are really important, the high stake assessments. This is evidence-based. We did summary writing and it helps with note taking. The scaffolding's there for the kids that need it. I like the graphic organizers. There's a lot of color coding that we do. And if you go to the next couple slides, these are just some, this is a sample of just the sections or units, but keep going, Rob. Keep going, we already said that. Keep going. Right here. It's multi-sensory, so there's the kindergarten through 2nd grade example. They use the traffic light, and then 3rd through 5th grade. So this is just an example of what you would learn in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, and then you build upon it more in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. It gets more detailed. So it's the same idea, and the kids would already know about it. You're just adding more, and it's getting more complex.
I see. That also goes 6, 8, 9 to 12.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, it does. It goes all the
It
way.
does, but I'm not sure if we were.
Yeah, we're not recommending that at this time. This is
Because
just
they're the
a
experts already,
K
I
to
think.
5, right?
Yeah.
And back to Dr. Reek's question about autonomy. Going to the ELA teachers at the secondary level and saying you need to teach writing like this is not something we're ready to do yet. But we like this because it lays that strong foundation on which they can build.
Was there any kind of conversation with them about this?
Not yet.
Yeah.
No, we haven't gotten that far yet.
Because
But
it
there's
might be
definitely
interesting,
conversations
so-
about what we need to get some sort of consistency because they're seeing that hodgepodge come in.
And the verbiage, it might be interesting to hear from them if
Right.
this is the
I'd
same.
like to know that.
Because a
Even
lot of
maybe
it looks
6th
like
grade.
it probably is. I'm guessing it is.
Right, but we just assume they're already the expert English teachers,
Right.
But here's an
I'm
example.
going to say that that's really, the assumption is they're expert teachers, but that was the same assumption we had with math teachers. And I think we had 7 books in 6 grades. 11 math
11
books
different programs.
being taught by expert teachers. And so the consistency, and I hadn't thought about it before tonight because I don't do this all the time. But, in math, it makes sense that you would have a sequence of events that would build on. Okay, and it certainly makes sense in writing that you'd have the same thing, the things I would learn in 1st grade, I'd use in 2nd grade, and I'd be building on that in 12th grade.
Right.
Okay, so if you want to make my writing stronger, I think some consistency across all 12 grades would be useful.
Well, this is a
So-
good start, though. I mean, because
No,
right
no,
now.
I'm not arguing with the start.
Yeah.
Again,
But I'm guessing they probably already do, the
Right.
secondary
well, and
English focused teachers already use this vocabulary, they use the process, they use.
Yes.
that's the hope.
Right.
And they do the TDAs.
Again, that's the hope. Okay, but so like I encourage the BCI people to look farther forward. I'm going to ask you to
We absolutely
open up those
can.
conversations to the junior high and the high school.
Yeah, the work that Mr. Bowers and Dr. Minnick and Dr. McMasters have been doing, and with Justin at the junior high school, is really starting to get into that. How are we teaching these things? Why are we teaching them the way we teach them? So they're having those conversations, and I'm sure that's coming up very soon here. Like why do we teach writing the way we teach writing? Is it consistent? What do you need moving forward? I mean, but
And what can the board do to help you?
Perfect.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's,
A few years ago, Mr. Springer and I and several other teachers went to an MTSS training at Patton, and it was, I think, 9 days throughout the school year, and we really learned a lot. They gave us a live binder and gave us lots of strategies, and I still use them for writing. And it's interesting because one of the things that they taught us about were 3-minute writes. The more the kids write about a topic, sure, but writing has to go beyond that. So I'd give them a topic, they'd write. And another thing was a 20-minute write. So that was all great. But if I'm not teaching them how to teach, what an opinion writing piece should look like or what a narrative should look like, it's a disservice. So a few years ago, I gave them this, and this came right from Patton. And it was about if you bought a toy from the store and you brought it home, it was broken, what would you do? And at the top, and this came from them, it said opinion/argument writing. So some of the things that my students said is they would argue with the cashier. These are quotes from third graders. Ask for the manager, have an argument with the lady working, shout at her. So they thought that argument, we all know opinion writing is you establish a stance, you give I believe this, and give 3 reasons. They had no clue. So that was like, oh, throw that out the window. Let's start from scratch. So that's just an example, though, of if they don't know what those types of writing are. So when they come to me, they will already have seen it in first grade. They will know it for sure in second grade. And this is, I'm not, no discredit to what they're doing already because the teachers are teaching writing. We just need it to be more consistent. So I thought that was a funny example. I saved some of those.
And I'm amused at your 30-second, your 3-minute writing.
I'm sorry, yeah.
In figure drawing, we do the same thing.
Okay, yeah.
We would have 30-second drawings, we'd have 2-minute drawings, we'd have 20-minute drawings. And again, you would learn to do things quicker. And it was pretty obvious when you blew it.
Well, Rob came in the last day of school and we were doing them. Well, Shannon was doing them in her room and I did them. It was one of the last things I did in the last day of school. And we looked at what we did the first week of school compared to how much we wrote in the last day of school. And it was pretty cool, to see how good they got and the grammar and the sentence structure. And that's one thing with this is grammar is embedded in this program. There's all these different resources that is just going to be so different from what we have, which is nothing.
You can't keep Lisa down. Lisa.
Sorry, this is my area. This is great. So let me just say.
You need to apologize, by the way.
The focus here on how you're bringing together the syntax and the text structure and writing craft is really, really huge. And consistency in the language across grade level is really important, and especially for my kids, for the kids who have language disorders, kids who are struggling with language to begin with, but to have the same language being used across grade level. I talk to my students all the time about, if you're struggling with language and a teacher is using a certain set of visual, like graphic organizers, a certain set of language in order to talk about those and teach those, and then those kids move to the next grade level, and then the teacher has a new graphic organizer because they like the butterfly or the ice cream cone better than, whatever was being used last year by the previous teacher. Then my kids with language issues start all over again from square one because they have to learn new language to describe different kinds of text. And so cause effect, expository, different types of expository text, cause effect, description, argumentative, opinion, and that can go on. Narrative structure, persuasive structure. And so to have everyone talking the same language is huge for them. Also for kids with learning disabilities. So even though you might not consider, introducing this as a standard kind of operating practice for middle and high school, I would certainly say sharing what you're doing at the K through 5 level with junior high and high school is really important, because if they know what terminology now kids are going to come to them already understanding, already speaking, then they're able to decide to use that terminology or help at least translate that terminology into the terminology that they're using. And at that point, kids can make a shift, but it's easier to teach a new language if you know what language the kids were using before. So in terms of consistency, I'd certainly recommend that you introduce, to the junior and high school teachers what is being taught. I think that the service you're doing to kids, especially with learning disorders, or learning disabilities, and language disorders, is huge also for the fact that you're teaching concepts about syntax and text structure, helps kids have a framework then for comprehension. And so you are teaching comprehension by teaching them these things as part of the writing process. So I think this looks really excellent, and it's a great kind of complement to what else is going on in curriculum. I did remember the other thing that I wanted to say earlier, which was that, with the kindergarten teachers who are saying they're not in support of CKLA, I would really love for you all to get some qualitative data to understand that better, because I think those teachers might have some specific concerns that also then could also be addressed, right? And some of them might be things like this, like writing or, emphasis on phonological awareness and phonics, and their perception that maybe there's other areas like vocabulary and comprehension that maybe aren't being addressed as well. And so understanding their concerns could be so fruitful. And also, fruitful in helping build a cohesiveness in the curriculum that addresses all of the things we need for good reading outcomes, phonological awareness, phonics, comprehension, fluency, vocabulary. So putting it all together.
Thank you.
I'm done.
No, I appreciate the input. Thank you very much.
There's a cost to this program?
There is. It is.
For the low price.
Yeah, the whole thing with the training, and again, I put the training in the quote because you can't do something like this without that training and the support that the teachers need. It comes to about $44,000 for everybody from K to 5, which is not that bad. Again, when it comes to price,
Is that an annual cost?
that's a one-time cost.
And then the program's there forever?
And the program is there for as long as they need. Now, we may have to do booster training sessions and stuff like that through a professional level budget, but
But it's not $44,000 a year.
not $44,000, that's correct. And we have money that's also budgeted for this through Title I to help pay for this. So again, this is a budgeted cost that we can cover without adding any new cost to the district.
Is there any objection? Let's bring that forward. You need at the board, you need to put a price tag on it.
Yes, sir.
And I'd be happy to bring back samples next school year. I mean,
Yeah, I would like
honestly,
you
I mean,
to.
there are assessments, I'd be happy to bring some of the samples back. Just keep them.
That would be nice, yeah.
I know that we're kind of short for time, but there's also a video that I included in that too. We want to share that with the board members. They
Yeah,
can
it's
watch
linked, it's
the
linked to your
weekend.
agenda. You can go on and watch the
Okay.
video and look
Yeah.
at stuff. And I think I meant to link the quote, but maybe I haven't. If I haven't, I'll do that. Or I'll have
I
Mindy
didn't
put that.
see the quote.
And there was a live training, or we could do virtual.
Yeah, and we actually want the live training. We learned during COVID that Live training is way better than.
People cut out the name tags otherwise.
That's my scientific word. It's way better.
I'm always on email, I'm doing things and the screens.
We're worse than children when it comes to engagement when we're online.
Yep.
But I do want to thank Angie and Lee and Lisa for their leadership here. They spent a lot of time looking at a bunch of different programs. We looked at the CKLA counterpart. We looked at some SRS, some other acronym that basically was a almost like a social emotional approach to writing.
We didn't like the CKLA one.
Yeah, we didn't like that, the way it looked. We did it the way that it rolled out, especially at the younger late ages. And then they actually looked at creating our own, and then they came all the way back to Step Up to Learning. So they put a lot of time and effort into this, and I just want to thank them for their leadership and work, because I know it's not always easy. So,
Okay,
all right.
thank you.
Thank you guys, appreciate it. Sir, permission to go off script one more time?
You're going to go off anyway.
Well, we had Mr. Rummel, who's been very patiently waiting in the back, and I didn't.
Hurry on my.
And
I'm enjoying the conversation.
well, thank you guys very much. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank
Um,
you. Thanks for the call.
Yeah. All right. No problem. So, Mr. Rummel's here for the last item on the very on the agenda, on the non-agenda.
Mr. Karcher's online as
Mr.
well.
Karcher's online as well. And I didn't realize why you were here first. I thought you were here with Stuco, and then I was like, why is Jason here? I realized, so I apologize for skipping
No
over.
worries. It's all right.
But Dr. Minnick and Mr. Bowers wanted to give you an update on the MTSS process at the junior high school. It is going to have some scheduling impacts, and they have some potential solutions for that as well. And they brought the music team here to talk about that a little bit. So I'll turn it over to these gentlemen.
Thanks, Mr. Heinrich. So we're in the process of forming a schedule. We're working on the MTSS process, as Rob said, and that the way that's going to look for sixth grade is we're doing math blocks and ELA blocks, and it's really to address the performance over the last several years in that transition year. Essentially, to create the blocks, it's going to impact the number of encore classes sixth graders are going to have. Right now, ever since teaming was installed, every grade level has had 2 back-to-back periods of encore classes, and encores are your special subjects, art, music, PE, etc. Of course, we have a lot more at the junior high than just those, but those are our special subjects. And in order to fit the block in for both math and ELA for all sixth graders, we're going to take away one of those encore periods. So all sixth graders will still have 1 special subject every day instead of 2. And the trade-off is we get more added time in math and ELA. Now that impacts our encore programming. So what we want to do, and Mr. Heinrich and I were talking the other day about running a group of kids for a stretch of days, we think in the 30 to 35 or 36 day range straight in an encore, so that they could have continuity within that stretch. So a kid having art would have consecutive number of days of art. But why this is impactful to music is we are also losing 2 instructional periods of general music at the junior high level due to enrollment changes at East Pike, and that teacher who covered us started her day at East Pike and would transition over to East Pike. We're losing her. So the combination of that teacher moving back to East Pike because they need her there, coupled with the fact that we're reducing 1 encore period, means that we have to figure this out. And we have a recommendation. We have a possible solution that would still give kids music. But as we alluded to earlier, we're in the process of really looking at a 3-year plan where we start offering more and more electives at the junior high level anyways. So I'm gonna pause so that I don't give you more information that just complicates your picture of what we're asking for. And I'm gonna ask Jason to talk about the importance of music across 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and how we would offer it differently to 6th graders than to 7th and 8th graders.
Sure. So currently, Mr. Karcher covers 2 sections of 6th grade general music. I cover 2 sections of 7th grade general music. Greta Nelson covers 2 sections of 8th grade general music. Greta's the one who will be full-time at East Pike now. And so regardless really of the schedule change, whether we're going to this block scheduling or not, there would be 2 sections of general music that would have to be absorbed by Zach and I, because we don't have Greta there anymore. We've looked at the situation we're in and proposed a solution, but I don't think it would be fair from my perspective if I didn't say this first. We, instead of calling it a solution, I think it's more of a way to move forward in the situation that we're in. Because the bigger picture from our perspective in the music department is that over the past 10 years, we've gone from 3 teachers at the junior high to 2.5 to 2.2 to now, for the first time in junior high history, only 2 music teachers at the junior high school to cover the same number of courses. So as that has changed, we've absorbed impact, and where that impact has mostly been seen is in cuts to our lesson program. So for example, when I came to the junior high, I think it was 2011, I had the band program, which included 5 lesson slots a day and no general music. And so we were able to do tons of stuff in the band program, and that has been whittled away. Zach Karcher is the band director now. I'm doing chorus and orchestra. We both teach general music, as I mentioned before. Zach had 3 lesson periods this past year, and I had also 3, but my plan rotates between those 3, so it's really functionally just like 2 for the orchestra program. So we're at a point now where, before we lost Greta to this coming year, Zach and I's schedules are already totally maxed out. And so now we have to absorb those 2 more periods. So we're forced into a decision of what do we value more? And we've often said, and Zach's online, he can chime in here if he would like. We've often said that the most impact in music education that we have is in the ensemble, and especially the lesson program. That's not at all to take value away from general music. We, as music educators, we value general music. It's just that if we have to choose between the 2, which is where we're at now, we would rather see that cut to the general music program in 6th grade rather than to see a further cut in lessons. Probably not something the board wants to hear right now, but I think that the real solution is we need a 3rd music teacher. Because if we had a 3rd teacher to cover general music, it would open up all kinds of things. Over the past 10 years, we've lost advanced orchestra, we've lost a couple of advanced choral ensembles, and of course we've, as I already mentioned, the cuts to the lesson programs. So, the value, yes?
I have one question. Is general music an elective? Do students choose to take that, or
No.
everybody takes that?
Everybody takes it.
Everybody
Right
takes
now, the
general
way our
music.
programs are, the way our encores work, and we've tried to sustain this, and we've all absorbed, every department has absorbed cuts. I mean, the reality is, that it's part of the reality. So we've offered encores, all encores to all students coming through our doors. So every 6th grader gets everything, every 7th grader gets everything, every 8th grader. Now this is that part of what we're considering here is that if we had to squeeze somewhere, and this was consulting with both Jason and Zach, is that the general music class, we would still be able to offer the ensembles and lessons to 6th graders. We would offer all the encores, and we would roll them out a little differently than we have in the past.
Before you go on too far, explain to me why the teacher's at East Pike full-time when she wasn't last year.
Enrollment.
Enrollment what?
The number of students and the number of classes has increased at East Pike, so that she used to have holes in her schedule at East Pike, which allowed us to lend her to the junior high for certain periods of time. Well, those holes are filled right now, so she has to be a full-time elementary teacher.
Is that a significant number?
2 classes. I mean, it's the number of students?
The number of students?
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Well, it's not necessarily a total number of students, but I don't have, like, her schedule is maxed out with the number of homerooms that I have. right now we're sitting on a bubble group of kindergartners that could potentially be 6 first grades next year. If it is 6 first grades,
Normal first grades is 5?
5, yes,
So
sorry.
it's another, well, no, I'm just making sure that.
So if I added another first grade, I cannot provide them with music instruction because I don't have, because Greta's 2 periods are at the junior high. I can't put that in the schedule.
Is that a similar problem at Ben Franklin?
Ben Franklin has a full-time music
They've
person.
already been there. They don't have any room in their schedule to share already.
My
And
question
then do
is,
you share one? Does Eisenhower and Horace
No,
Mann, or how does that work?
We each have, but Eisenhower and Horace Mann each have a music teacher who teaches the general music program, but they also teach band, they also teach chorus, and they do the lessons.
So it's
begin-
one person, but they
they're
teach.
teaching, and they teach the lessons as well, because each of our kids, starting in 4th grade, get lessons in addition to the band, chorus, and general music.
So the problem is we're trying to come up with 2 periods of something
I
where.
understand, my question's a little broad,
Right.
a little broader in that, are we seeing an increase number of students in the, coming into Indiana School District?
Slightly is the answer, is the short answer. Our kindergarten enrollment seems to be on a projection that's going to be slightly higher than last
Well,
year.
it's slightly higher is 25 kids. That's a full classroom. Is it more than that?
It's going to be, well, no, it's probably, we're teetering right on that level where, based on the board's staffing guidelines, we're just 1 or 2 students away from being to the point where we need to consider hiring another first grade teacher. So,
And the reason I'm asking the question before you get into this is I don't want to put a patch on this and come back next year with a different, with a problem that's, again. Okay, so I mean, if we're having a trend where these incoming classes are getting large again, like the senior high is leaving now, and we have a series of really small classes, we have a different problem to solve. Okay, and I don't want to screw up a program and then have to reset it next year because now we have 50 kids. And you need another part-time teacher.
It's an interesting point because actually that's been part of our conversations when we've been planning and honestly, we appreciate everything that we get. We've been sort of covering with patchwork for the past few years in music and relying on other schools to lend us people when they can find ways to lend us people. And that's part and parcel of why we came to this tonight, because we thought, well, we really need to change the way we're offering this encore. And it does coincide with the shipment.
Yeah, go ahead with
Did
what your proposal was.
I have another
Yeah.
question quick though.
Yeah.
Did you happen to bring your numbers? Like how many kids right now are in band and are in the
Uh,
chorus?
The ensembles are growing like crazy. Next year, first of all, one of the things we've had to do as our schedule has been impacted over the past couple of years is we used to have separate ensembles for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Now the 7th and 8th grade chorus and bands are combined just to be able to get a period of lessons back. We combine those groups together. So I've got 72 kids coming into 6th grade chorus next year, but my 7th and 8th grade chorus is at 140 something, which is huge. And I mean, when I had a similar number this year, and you should have seen those rehearsals, they were hilarious. They're like so much fun, but just a huge number of kids in a rehearsal. Zach has similar numbers. He's got.
I'm here. My the 7th and 8th grade band next year is 111, and the 6th grade number they're still trickling in. I think it's at 54 the last time I checked. But ideally, like if we had that period back, the 7th and 8th grade bands should be split so that each band was about 60-ish for several reasons. But that would be the optimal way for that to run.
Did he say each band was 60?
He said optimally that 7th and 8th grade band would be split into 2 separate bands that would be about 60 each. And he said for several reasons, one of those reasons is we're not even sure 111 to 120 kids fit in the band room. I mean, I had a band several years ago, an incoming 6th grade band that was gigantic. It was over 100, and we barely fit in the room, and they were smaller people because they were in 6th grade. 7th and 8th graders get bigger. So
and the instruments stay the same size.
Yeah.
We're working on Eisenhower with a band number of 100.
We had last year, this year we combined for our band concert, and we had both Horseman and Eisenhower on the stage. I think we had about 102 kids. if I'm
Yeah,
not
that was
mistaken.
Horace Mann
Yeah.
and Eisenhower. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
we'll be okay,
that's
yeah.
over 50 kids,
Right.
feeding.
Yeah, to give it a little perspective too, just on our week, and I don't mean to, I hope I don't sound like I'm making anyone sound bad. Our teachers work really, really hard, but our encore teachers typically, if you do the numbers and how the classes work out, they typically see about 160 kids a week. Zach next year is looking at seeing 330. And I'm about at the same without counting my flex ensembles. That's the other thing, is several of the ensembles over the years that met during the day have been moved to that flex period. If you count my flex ensembles, I'm seeing over, I think it's like 420 kids a week next year.
That's 420 separate kids.
Some of them are counted twice, and I only counted them twice because they come to me for different classes. So I have to plan for instruction.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like they're in multiple courses.
Yeah.
So even though I'm seeing the same kid more than one time, that's different instruction.
But he's seeing almost 2/3 of the junior high every week. Okay, and the bands are similar numbers. This seems to be, and I can attest of your success of your teaching programs for my kids. My youngest daughter did trombone and did.
I remember teaching her.
Soon.
Maybe when she got to high school. I had her when she was
Yeah,
younger.
well, she got bored of the trombone, so she decided to try something hard.
Yeah.
But those are opportunities, and without those lessons in there, those are not opportunities.
And Mr. Harley, what we're working towards is that elective approach. So we have students picking the courses they're interested in, and how that shakes out the schedule is yet to be determined because we don't know. We know 300 and some 400 kids are interested in music. They're getting their music instruction. And we know that ensemble.
But it's not as robust as it was.
And what we're hoping is with the electives that we can even that out, and these guys will have more periods available to be able to do that, depending on student choice and where they want to go and what routes they want to take as far as their elective courses.
There's a lot of planning in that though
Yes.
too, because we have to plan with the encore teachers. That's a totally different change in how to offer them. But again, back to what we want to propose tonight.
Please do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And the questions are good.
I'm
They're
trying
good
to figure out-
questions. But
Yeah.
I think it's good just to have context, to make an informed decision. And Jason did a good job of providing context because you wouldn't know that we've
Well,
reduced.
I wouldn't know that Mr. Springer has 25 new kids that parachuted in from somewhere. Okay. We've been chasing negative numbers for what, 5 years now, and these last two cohorts are substantially larger. And every 25 kids is another frontline teacher.
I think my first grade is 106 or 108, and we were typically around in the low 90s is where we typically are.
Yeah.
And usually get a push in August too, don't you?
Usually, yes.
Yeah. So he's threatening a senior class in 12 years of 220, 230 kids, which is what we had 5 years ago. So, Rob has troubles.
Yes, sir. We abound.
There's abundance.
Well, we have to provide rooms for these people, and we have to provide frontline teachers and support teachers, and if this trend continues,
If the trend continues, we're definitely gonna have to come back to you and ask for more staff. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I don't think we're there just yet, but we're making preparations in case we get there.
Next year is not too soon.
Yeah.
If this continues, there's no reason to think that it's not.
Yeah.
So, there we go. Okay, please tell us your solution, because we need a short-term solution.
Well, again, it is important to be accurate with the words. I'm not sure it's a solution in the big picture for music, but yet we do have I'm cold. I was just thinking the same thing. Like my nose. I feel like I'm in a sled ride.
Sure, yes.
This summer, we're replacing this mechanical system. If I have to tear it off the roof myself.
So essentially what we want, we're gonna maintain 2 encore periods for 7th and 8th grade. So they will still have general music in 7th and 8th grade, plus the ability to have lessons, plus the ability to have the opportunity to participate in ensembles. 6th grade would look a little different because we're not going to have 2 encore periods. They'll still have the opportunity to participate in the most beneficial piece of music instruction, and that's the ensemble and in lessons. But we're pulling out the general music option because we have 5 or 6 other encores that we can roll through their day, and they'll still have access to FCS, Family Consumer Science, and art, and PE, and health, and tech ed, and BCIT. They're still going to have those opportunities, so they're going to have more offerings than they've had before the junior high still, and then they'll pick up with the general music again in seventh grade. But maybe in the year 24-25, that's an elective. We have to work toward that. But because we realize our solution, I'll just stick with that word, the solution is to take out a general music offering to all 6th graders and let the kids who are already passionate about music still have a very enriched opportunity to develop their music passion. They still will get that. We felt like we contacted Rob and said, hey, we're not advocating to cut music here. We want to be very clear about that, but we know we're going to have to present this to the board because we don't want any misunderstandings, which is why the context is important. And this allows us to put emphasis on reading and math with the longer reading and math blocks. It does acknowledge the fact that we've lost staff over the years, and we've lost staff in every department, but this is a way for us to continue to offer music at every grade level of the junior high in the way that we feel we're going to get the most impact. I hope that was clear. I tend to go on these little sidewalks, and I don't mean to do that. So hopefully
At the end, you cleared it up for me. I was going to ask, so how does MTSS and music, but you made that connection. You pulled it together here at the end.
You finally pulled it all together right at the end. It was
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's closing.
The good news about this is, well, there's 3 things that I'm okay with about this. One is that the students who love music get the music. The students who are prone to that, who have that passion, are going to get that. They're going to get enriched. In fact, you'll have a little bit. You should have some time to focus on them. The students who maybe don't love music, we need to trim away some of those encores to begin with to make room for that English and math. It's a natural fit for those, a lot of those kids that might not have that love. The other thing is we don't have to come up with a way. We have to, the other solution, if there is one, is that we have to pull somebody out of high school and bring them down to cover those other classes, or take one off of Aaron and pull them out, and then their lessons, and that's their feeder program. So there are no really great solutions to this problem.
I have one. We could hire Mr. Saylor back half a day.
Saylor retired and they're taking off.
We always brought him back to IUP for a year. Now can we bring him back just for half a day?
He's sailing his boat.
I know. I just talked to him the other day.
Waterfront at the junior
All right.
I would like to point out.
Yeah,
that
we'll be
his son-
sailing past the junior high.
His son sold out the Indiana Theater. 320 standing.
That was a
room only.
great concert. That was so good.
Yeah, so it was
That was
really
fun.
quite remarkable.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was neat.
These guys have been unbelievably supportive to us for the past couple of years. So I hope nothing that I said makes it sound like like we haven't been getting that support. They've been amazing for Zach and I. The fact that they, asked us to be here tonight and have called us down to their offices several times just to try to figure this out. It's clear that it's a priority, and I appreciate that. I do want to just say one more time that, like you mentioned, the music kids who want to be in those ensembles would get that time, and we'd have time to focus on them. That's true in a sense, but also just as a reminder that this solution, by removing 6th grade general music, is really just to maintain our current status quo with lessons. It just keeps us from having to cut the lessons more. It doesn't really gain us anything back. It just allows us to keep doing next year what we were doing this year with the lesson program.
And
I just
in 6 years, you have another 50 kids showing up.
And ideally, we would love, I mean, there's, may sound a little arrogant, but like Zach and I love working together and we do a really good job. And, you know, there are so many opportunities that we could be creating for kids if we had more space in our schedule. There's just so much. And there's such a desire for music ensembles at the junior high at that level. Kids are just so into it. I mean, you know, from your kids being involved, they're just kids that want to be around the music department all the time. And if we had more time with them, we could be doing crazy stuff.
And I'd like to reiterate too that, you know, we've been blessed with great music teachers over the years. I mean, the teachers that I've had at Ben Franklin and at the junior high are really phenomenal. Jason and Zach are the top. They're the best. I mean, they're just phenomenal teachers. And that's why they do get pulled in so much, because we so value their input, and we know they're going to help us find solutions when it comes to making the most of what we have. And we have a lot of abundance. Don't get me wrong. I feel like we have a really abundant school program, but we also know we don't operate as independent entities. This is a move that requires your blessing to say, we trust you're going to do the best for kids. So that's why we're here tonight.
And our hope with that elective choice in the coming years is maybe we can open these guys' schedule up and we're not forcing kids to take classes that they don't want to take and so forth. I don't know how many times I've had a discussion with the student, and why aren't you doing this work? They don't want to be in there, and they have other interests, which is fine. And once you get to that secondary level, that's normal. So, you know, the hopes are that we can open these guys up a little bit to provide more of those enriching opportunities for the kids that want that.
So what is the disadvantage of not having sixth grade general music?
The disadvantage is just not having music. I mean, there's value to a music education. Just to give you a clearer picture of what they would be missing, like our content in sixth grade is more of a world music focus. So you kind of get that global viewpoint of what music looks like all over the place. And that's what they would be missing. When they come back into general music in seventh grade, we do more of a focus on film music and composition. So it's more of like a hands-on music writing, which is amazing. I'd love to show you sometime some of the compositions that seventh graders create for films that they've watched, and then they write their own music for it. It's pretty amazing. And then in eighth grade, it moves to piano skills, which is of course hands-on. So we'd be missing that world music component for a year. They get some of that, a lot of that in the elementary grades as they're coming up through. It's just the sixth grade is more of a focus on that area. So that's what we'd be missing.
What's going to happen to the seventh graders, the sixth graders who don't have general music and then they become seventh graders? How much of a disadvantage are they going to be at because of not having had that sixth grade?
I mean, I'm sure it's measurable at some amount, but I don't think it'll be too bad because the seventh grade focus, again, is on composition. And no matter what amount of music they've had until they hit seventh grade, practically none of them have any composition. So we're starting from square one anyway with everybody.
A progression from that one class to the other.
Now, the composition aspect, moving into the piano skills aspect, there would be a problem there if we lost that, but the world music into the composition, I don't think would make too much of a difference.
How often a week did the kids have the general music classes?
Currently, we see them every day for the quarter. Next year, sixth grade.
35 days. Yeah, we're looking at like a 35-day stretch. It's going to be less than a quarter and that's an impact of going from 2 periods in their day to 1 period in their day. So, but and Rob proposed, I think what could be a really good model. I think it's exciting for us to have a model where they get them consecutively for those days versus rotating through
And
the
then
other
they would move to
encores.
like to
Yeah.
art or whatever
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah, currently in the elementary schools, they see them once every 5 days.
Right.
And I hate
I was
that.
familiar with that.
If I could fix that, I would, because like, especially if we want to do these project-based learners, I don't know how some of the teachers pull off the things that they pull off.
Yeah, especially the
they're
art
miracle
teachers, how
workers.
they have to wait till the next 5 days, like where do you
They're-
store all that stuff
they're
for every
unbelievable.
single grade?
Yeah, what they do is unbelievable. But because as soon as you would get them out and get them going, like it's time to clean up, and then you don't see him for 5 days, and one of the little kids gets sick and he misses that, so you don't see him for 10 days, and it's so I would really like to move away from that, move to that kind of model at the elementary school too. But there are other factors that keep that from happening. But yeah, but I think it works at the junior high. Or doesn't at the elementary.
So this whole problem, we came and asked for an English teacher and a math teacher before
Mhm.
and didn't say anything about music. This whole problem is because of Mr. Springer. Am I right? He's stealing the teacher that's
growing.
causing this problem.
That'd be
It
correct.
was not a problem
Yeah.
the last time you were here.
I find that 90% of our
That's
problems
Okay, all right.
That's not, you can't take all the credit for people wanting their kids in the Indiana school district. So at some point you go to graduation and you see these kids and it's just a miracle.
And in addition, it's not just for the extra grade level. Now that autistic support and life skills are in my building, I want to put an adapted music class in place.
as we should.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, this is stuff we need to do. So we'll patch it together this year and Rob's gonna find us a music teacher and an elementary school teacher next year. Okay,
Look for
Rob?
dual certs. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
But yeah, I just want to thank Zach and Darcy for their flexibility too, and their creative problem solving here. Because a lot of times teachers and or people get upset when we have these conversations and they just take their ball and go home, and these guys don't. They stay at the table and they work with us and solve problems, and that's very, very valuable. So thank you very much.
Well, Zach's at this meeting from his camper on Assateague Island, so
Right?
that's commitment.
Yeah, that is. They are.
Thank
They
you.
are, and we get a lot of compliments. So you guys do outstanding work.
Thank you. They sure do.
So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is this a motion?
No, this is simply just an FYI. I don't think that we have to have a motion necessarily to change a schedule. We change schedules pretty often without it, but we just wanted you and the public to be aware that this is what's happening.
I just hate to see it happen. Yeah, I hate to see the loss of a music class.
Yeah, this can't be permanent. This can't be. We gotta find a way. Okay. The music program, the performing arts program in Indiana has historically been strong.
And I'm guessing probably sometimes you recruit students out of general music into some of the other
Yeah, I mean, we,
music, identify a kid in that class who has a strength.
Sure.
But it's not only the two general, it's not only the seventh grade general music, it's the amount of lessons that have been cut.
Sure.
And the amount of, I know that when you guys get those kids in those practice rooms and you're teaching them stuff, they're into it. And you're not serving as many kids as you should,
Sure.
as we should.
Yeah,
So it's not only just the general music classes, it's also
The number of kids you have to see
3
at
or
a time.
5 classes of lessons that you're not giving. And,
Yeah.
And some of these, you know who they are. Some of these kids are only in school because they like playing their instrument. Okay, they're not gonna be physicists.
Yeah.
Okay, but they may be Joe Saylor.
Yeah, band and orchestra music in music education is graded on a scale of difficulty from like 0 to 6. Like 6 is like your college level stuff. Back in the 2011, 2012, when I had 5 lesson periods a day, the junior high band was performing at a grade 4 or 4.5, which is like insanely high. This is no slight on Zach at all. He's an amazing teacher, but just because of time, we're not there anymore. And we would love to see that get back, because then that filters into the high school. And, when festival seasons open up in the high school, there's just so much opportunity for kids if they have that foundation all the way through. and can hit those high school programs with tons of skills. So we want to be a better feeder program for the high school too. So, yeah.
There you go. Put that on your to-do list.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys coming in.
Thank you.
So
Thank
we-
you.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Enjoy your vacation.
I am paying attention, and I was waiting to jump in, but you guys nailed it all.
Thanks, Doc. What can we do next?
We'd like to jump up to summer driver's ed because Mr. Wojtowicz has been patiently awaiting our, if he's still on, or did he, there he is. Pete's still on. The enrollment in, well, I'll turn it over to Pete. Pete wanted the opportunity to speak to you about the possibility for accredited advancement for the second half of summer. So, Mr. Wojtowicz, if you would, please.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So I have a presentation. I did send it to Randy. Am I able to share my screen? Or Randy, could you throw that up on the?
If you want to share, you can, but I can put it up for you, whatever you want.
Yeah. If you could put it up, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna present here on a proposed summer session for driver's ed. So put some data here together earlier today, and you can head to the next slide, Randy. So the proposed summer session would run from about beginning of July, so July 3rd to August 11th. That gives us about 6 weeks. So the students would do their 30 hours of classroom, which is done through Google Classroom, online instruction, and then they do their 6 hours behind the wheel training for a total of 36 hours per student. And we currently have 3 of us driving instructors. So there's myself, Mark Pangonis, and Brad Wright, who are wrapping up a couple students who didn't get to drive during the school year. By the end of June, we're hoping to get those students finished, or we will get those students finished. And there's currently 84 students. That's on the next slide, so I'll wait to get to there. We have 28 students who have shown interest to sign up for a summer session. I think it'd be safe if we ran 20 students. I wouldn't want to bite off too much and be scrambling at the end of the summer to try to get these students their hours in. So I think talking to Brad and Mark and potentially Larry too, I think we can get 20 students done. So the advantage of these students driving in the summer, it provides students that don't have room in their schedule for next year with an opportunity to drive, and would also potentially lower our numbers, which are already at a point to where we can't offer it to everyone who wants it next year. And so that help out with scheduling a little bit. So you can see on the screen there, a lot of our elective, or not our elective, but our mandatory classes next year for PE, we've already got about an average of about 28 students per class for, I think, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade PE. And if we'd knock out, even 10 students and take away 2 periods of driver's ed, we wouldn't do any less sections of PE, but that would drop those class sizes down a little bit, which would help out and just create a little bit more flexibility for students in their schedules. So that's kind of the current interest for driver's ed for the summer. As far as what we would charge the students, I'm not sure if we'd charge the same amount that we would other advancement students. I think that's somewhere around $125 to $150. You could correct me on that, Rob.
Yep.
Okay. And yeah, so Randy, if you have any questions, please jump in and ask them. I know I'm kind of rifling off a lot of information here. So for next school year, there's currently 86 students signed up for 23-24. And we're currently offering 12 sections of driver's ed. So 12 sections, we can get 7 students done per section. That's 84 students within the current constructs of the schedule. So you can see we're already 2 students over that max for next school year. And talking to our guidance department at the end of the school year, they anticipate that number to grow a little bit. So, it would be nice to try to knock off, 10, 12, 15 students to create some room and flexibility for next school year.
Why is the sections limited to 7 students?
So each, go ahead, Rob, sorry.
It's the number of hours of the rules of driver's ed say you have to have so many hours of driving with that student. There's only so many hours in Mr. Wojtowic's day, so those hours of the day, times the number of students, that eats up his whole thing. So that's what limits the enrollment in that. And so,
Yeah,
so Mr. Wojtowic's idea here is, we open up a credit advancement opportunity so the students that want to get it out of the way in the summer, get it out of the way in the summer. It frees up their schedule so they can take other things that they might want to take, and it allows the opportunity for other students to have driver's ed next school year.
Of course, the question, the cost of the district
Is not budgeted, so this is new money we're talking about here. So
how much are we talking?
well, if we charge the students for it, we can cut into that somewhat. So it's, I'd have to run the actual numbers. I'll have them for you for next week if you guys want to put it on there.
No. Put it on with the number.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, Pete, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you guys for your time.
What are we going to do next?
If we can do it, if it's not too expensive, I think we should.
It makes a lot of sense. I've been a proponent of cutting driver's ed for some time now, because I'm not sure that that's the best use of our resources, but it's something, if we're going to offer it, it does offer the opportunity for students to take things in the fall that they wouldn't have to take. That's the whole point of credit advancement. And if we can offset some of the costs by charging the families, then, it might be a win-win for students. So let me see where we were, Mr. Harley. A couple of things that we have to take care of. The academic and extracurricular spending audit. This is back to our previous conversations around the budget. In the end of this month, you guys are going to approve a budget with a pretty hefty deficit, and we have to figure out where we're saving this money. And what we need to do, and what we want the board to approve and direct us to do, is get in there, dig in, and get after it. And that means really look tightly at some of these things. This is all related, like whether we offer driver's ed credit advancement. It might not be a significant number, but is it something we need to offer as far as new costs? Class sizes. John Hattie does research, did a lot of research on what different things that affect student achievement. And class size actually is very, very small when it comes to the effect on student outcomes. So do we want to look at, if we increase class sizes from 25 to 28, could we, save money that way too? What we want to do is we want to really dig in and look line by line at that budget. Look at every academic program, look at every extracurricular program, look at every place we spend money in operations, and come back with a list of possible solutions to this budget problem, because that's what we should do. However, that's going to take an inordinate amount of manpower hours. And we don't.
Is this internal? You're going to do.
It's an internal audit. This is Mr. Zahorchak, myself, and Mr. Cronauer sitting down with the administrative team and really looking at everything we spend and why we spend it and what's the outcome. And the idea there is we would come back with a list that would say, this is what we spend. This is why we think it's something that we could look at not spending anymore. This would be the impact on students. None of it's going to be easy. There's not going to be any easy decisions here, because every dollar we spend ends up helping kids some way. That's what we do, is we help children. So they're not going to be easy decisions, but we want to basically, set the menu and say, look, these are the places we could save. We're not saying that we would do this in lieu of a tax increase, but we think that if we're talking about increasing taxes, we should talk about saving money anywhere we can too. I think that's the responsible thing to do. So that's why that's on there. We want to get going on this as early as Thursday. We have a meeting scheduled to start this work, but we just kind of want the board to understand what it is we're about to be doing, because it's going to be upsetting for some people, and they're going to call you and they're going to reach out and they're going to say, they're looking at my stuff, and we just want to make sure everybody's on the same page as why we're doing what we're doing.
When do you think this will be concluded?
I'm sorry?
When will you conclude this?
Soon. I mean, I think the last time the board talked, we said by December of this year, we have cuts. I plan to have that to you much sooner than that, within a several weeks, I would say. It's going to take us some time to really get in there and look, but, it should not take, before the beginning of the school year, I'd like to have some real, viable options for you if they exist. Okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. The Community Guidance Center partnership is, the Community Guidance Center, as you know, that's where we house Alpha. They're a good partner with us. They got a grant to provide some mental health services to our students. And they want to release an article on this grant partnership. We talked about this grant partnership before, but they want to release this grant, move forward with it, know that we're their partner, and they're requesting to use our facilities for one of their programs that's being funded by this grant. So the grant is called Hear Me, See Me, and it's a way to empower those students. Like we heard the lady from the junior high talk about bullying and the stresses that can have. We want to empower those students with positive ways to deal with that kind of stress and those kinds of situations. The Community Guidance Center is going to help us with that. They're going to provide suicide awareness training for teenagers, so that if you hear your friend saying things that are concerning, you know what to do. We have those wonderful students at the senior high, the leadership team, that have that green bandana initiative, and they have these other like mental health, like they could be their mental health counselors, but they have no real skill, and it's scary. What we want to do is we want to empower them to actually have some training and some skill. This, coupled with that teen mental health first aid, we think is going to be a really nice program that we can keep our kids safe. We talk about proactive ways to keep kids safe. Yes, we need to harden our schools. We also need to keep kids safe proactively. We need to make sure that they have the tools necessary to recognize their own feelings and their own emotions when they're in trouble, and their friends' emotions, and then how to hook them up with the right people to get them help. And that's all this partnership is. The in-kind agreement is linked on the agenda. They have a music and mindfulness. There is a drummer from a personal favorite band of mine called Rusted Root. So I'm really excited. I'm going to go just to hang out. But they do these therapy drumming sessions. They want to use one of our facilities to host this. And, as an in-kind thing that we wouldn't charge them, we would do it anyway, just as long as they fill out the insurance forms and stuff. So it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned, but it does need board approval for us to partner with them on this grant.
She says, okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you much.
Bring it to the board as a motion.
Okay. The NCEE, I will try to give you the abbreviated version because I know we are all tired, but it's important, and this is the second time we bumped this, so I'd like to present a couple of things here. Whoops. Last month, we were supposed to present you with a data presentation. I linked the entire data presentation to the agenda so that the community and the committee members can look at that data in its entirety at your leisure. However,
Also, did Dr. McMasters update this? She was going to update this document for us because she forgot
Did she? I don't know. I have to
she
follow
forgot
up.
the below.
I lost yeah.
Thanks. I mean, I'm assuming we can figure it out by just adding below onto well below, but I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Whoops. Let's try that again, shall we? There we go. So after we got bumped last time for the presentation on data, I shortened the data presentation from 67 slides or whatever it is down to a few slides, and I kind of coupled that with some of the solutions we're working on so that you can understand where we are and where we intend to go. So this is basically a data review, and I'm going to explain this slide to you so that you can understand what's going on. This is Indiana, in each one of these slides, this is Indiana Area School District. These are the last 5 years. So this is the data from last year's 2021-22's standardized test data by subject. This one happens to be the ELA and PSSAs. And this is district-wide. This is the overall average of all of the scores on the ELA PSSAs from grade 3 to grade 8. If you'd like to see the specific grade levels, they are in the original data presentation that's linked to your agenda, and you can dig in and see each individual grade level. Next to this, I compared this. This is to like school districts. These are school districts that fit the same profile as Indiana. That's school districts that have approximately 40 to 50% free and reduced lunch. Our free and reduced lunch numbers sit at right now at about 47.8%. So this is school districts across the state with similar demographics. This is Indiana County. And again, these are the last 5 years. Each one of these bars is one of the years. This is the IU, the total Aaron IU, and this is the state. So that you can see where we are and where we're trends. But I thought these particular data are very telling because you're going to see the COVID cliff over and over and over again. And not that it's an excuse. I don't want to make an excuse for the data, but it's a reality that we're dealing with across the state. And it doesn't matter if you're in Indiana County or if you're in Philadelphia. These are the trends that are happening here, and it's something we need to be aware of. So this is ELA across the grade levels, and you'll see that we're just under 70% of our students proficient or advanced on the PSSAs, which is not good enough. We've dropped significantly over right after COVID, we took a hit and we have not recovered yet. We expected that number to, like a bell curve, a J curve to come back up, but this is where we are after last year's tests. Correction efforts that we have in place here are we want to explore, and some of the things that we brought to the table today. We're looking for that more aligned curriculum that's a little bit more rigorous and has higher expectations as far as skills development. We're looking for a writing program that is comprehensive and uniform across the board that the lead teachers presented to you tonight. We're establishing data teams at each and every one of our buildings. That expansion and development of the MTSS program into the junior high. We talked about enhanced core reading instruction at the elementary schools. And with those data teams will come more frequent and regular progress monitoring. So we're going to get good at our data. We're going to own our data, and we're going to make adjustments to instruction based on that data more frequently and more frequently, more timely. This is math. Math is definitely one of our areas of focus moving forward. It has to be. And again, you can see the cliff is pretty severe. And it is everywhere in the state, but this is the lowest this district has ever been as far as math is concerned. We're about 43% of our students are at or above proficiency in math grades 3 through 8. And again, if you want to look at the specific grade levels, they are linked in that other data presentation. What are we doing here? Well, we already have some of these things in place. The board last year, made a nice move, in our opinion, to move to that spring math tier 1 intervention. We've seen some really incredible growth data from them. I also included some of that in that data presentation that you can look at. That program seems to be working across the board. And so we expect that, this will help us turn that curve around a little bit. We are working with Aaron IE28 to one of their tax supports. This past year, we worked with grades 3 through 6 to really look at our curriculum and identify and accelerate our curriculum. So right now, when we work through our program, if you started at the beginning and worked all the way to the end, you don't get through all the tested stuff by the time we get to the PSSA. Well, the teachers worked together and they went through and they picked out and condensed things where they were. The new math, so to speak, it's not like they used to teach us math, right? We used to do long division, and it was just, we would practice long division over and over again. Now they teach you like 6 different ways to do that division problem, and which is great for some people, but also we see a problem with how the kids get confused on which one of those ways to apply to the program. So what we've done is we've taken that 6 and we've taken it down to 2 or 3 ways to do the program. That way, the students still have alternative options for solving the problem, but not 6. And we can get through the content much quicker and then practice that content before the PSSAs so that they're more prepared when the PSSAs come. That work has happened 3 to 6. We'd like to move that down to the K to 2 or K to 3 next year as well. Curriculum maintenance, this is something that Mrs. Zahorzak and I have worked on last year and we put in place, and we're really excited about it. This all goes together, but to Dr. Reed's point about getting those teachers to really be empowered and to understand where they have the ability to be flexible, we're making those the curriculum that living, breathing document that it has to be. The teachers this year went through a process of examining the written curriculum compared to the instructed curriculum, compared to the assessed curriculum, and they really started to identify areas that they think are need. They shared those with us. The administrative team is going to sit down this year and we're going to look at where those things need to go, and we're going to empower them. Look, if you need to change this, get after it and change it this coming year. Each of our Act 80 days includes 90 minutes for these teachers to get together and work on this curriculum maintenance process. They will bring us back recommendations. We will bring those recommendations to you. You approve it, and we change the curriculum instantly so it's more fluid and responsive to our students' needs based on the teacher and their data. So we want to add math win time of the 4 5s. We started to scratch the surface on this past year, but next year we're going, we're jumping in because we have to. Hopefully, the reading data and the reading growth is showing us that we're on that point where we almost have that 80%, so that healthy core. Once we get to that healthy core, we need to make room for math. We completely focused on literacy, and I think the results have shown. I think we've seen the growth in literacy, and we haven't seen it in math. So we're working on that MTSS program at the junior high as well to address some of those needs, because specifically in 6th grade across the state, kids fall off an even bigger cliff, even without COVID. Those 6th grade numbers are pretty atrocious across the state. This is science. Science is, oddly our strongest, our strongest, which is great. It's a good problem to have. But again, you see, we've had the COVID cliff was there, but we've already kind of rebounded a little bit here. But still, we're not satisfied with 76% of our students being at or above benchmark. We'd like that number to get up, higher than that. Solutions here, and some of the solution already. I think core knowledge, language arts, is very, very nonfiction rich in their content knowledge. We think that's contributing to some of this. The introduction of the STEM activities, the 4 5s, I believe have contributed to this and will continue to do that. Again, the curriculum maintenance process should, support some cross-curricular activities so that the teachers can work in those science content in with their writing and reading, et cetera. And then, we're exploring new curriculum ideas. The science team has been working on their stuff for 2 years. Just as they started, it was their turn to rotation. The state changed those standards. Those standards go into play 2 years from now. So we pumped the brakes, and we didn't want to come to this committee and say, we need you to buy this new curriculum that has no evidence to back it. It's not aligned to the new standards, just because it was their turn of the rotation. So we kind of punted on that one. They will be coming to you in the next 2 years with recommendations, and the 2 hires that you added are awesome as far as adding to that. So when you go back, if I go back real quick to this data, you'll see when you look at Indiana County, where was it? Indiana County's data. Oh, maybe it's on the other slideshow. You'll see in the middle school levels, the science data on the other slideshow and the complete data presentation, that we actually are below some of the people in IU, because Homer Center's data was really good because those teachers are very good. So we're excited to add them. Sorry, Homer Center. But anyway, moving on. This is the Keystone data, and we lumped these together. And again, you're going to see it. The same COVID cliff exists there. ELA is there across the board. However, ELA at the senior high is definitely an area of focus, because those trend, we have something going on with our curriculum that we need to fix. And Mr. Zahorzak, surprise. But one of his focuses moving forward next year is going to be to really dig into what's happening at the senior high ELA program, because our scores should be better than that. Now, I think the cliff here is because those students were at the junior high when COVID hit. They're behind. They didn't have those full days. Whereas the elementary, remember, we made accommodations to make sure that those students came to school every day. Now, we did have problems where we were quarantining students for 30, 40 days at a time, some cases. So there was learning loss, but it's even more significant in the junior high population. And so we think that this might not rebound right away, but we expect that we can get that team together and solve the problem shortly. Math, again, has to be an area of focus. I think that's the same effect. That COVID cliff is worse at the senior high. You'll see that place we actually dropped below the state in Keystone Algebra. Now, I will caution you that this data is looking at first-time test takers. Only we have those intervention programs where we will rebound. So our data shows first-time test takers. I'm not sure that the state data does. So I don't know that it doesn't, but I don't know that it does. And this is the biology trends across the state too. And you see that drop was significant as well. So what are we doing to solve this? Well, Link It. Link It is something we've been, again, scratching the surface on. It's going to be a focus at the secondary level. We use these Link It benchmarks. We need to get very, very good at using those. If used correctly, those Link It benchmarks can drill down. Once we give that test, so we give it at the beginning of the year, the teachers can very quickly look at that data. They can look at the standards that the students are weak in. They can look at the assessment anchors the students are weak in. They can drill down to the skills that contribute to those assessment anchors so that the students might be weak in or strong in. This is what we're doing at the junior high. This is the backbone of that MTSS program. We give those Link It benchmarks, and then we spend some time really looking at that data, identifying areas of strength, areas of weakness, places we can compact, and places we really need to go back and reteach. It should improve our tier 1 instruction. And if it can improve our tier 1 instruction, we should see an improvement in these scores. We also have that patent consultant that is helping us with the MTSS program, but also helping us with the SIM model, which is the strategic instructional model to senior high. What this is basically it makes the students owners of the learning that they're about to embark on. So before they start a unit, they give a basic overview, and the students basically create a visual organizer of all of the concepts that they're going to learn and how they interact, and so that everyone is very clear where we are and where we're going and how those concepts interact with each other. So, and it's been scientifically proven over research to have a positive impact on students' achievement. So we're excited about that moving forward here. And then again, the curriculum maintenance and the data review process that we're putting in place everywhere. So we have a lot of work to do to recover from the COVID cliff. We are hopeful that a lot of the measures that we put in place already should even impact our numbers that we're expecting to come back here this summer. We know that math needs to be a focus moving forward. Those numbers dropped way too far. And we need to get that MTSS at the secondary schools built quickly so that those students that are struggling can get that help they need and get back on track. Because, I'm blown away at graduation when you see these kids that are going to Penn State to study aerospace design and all that things. But they can only do that if we give them that solid base in math and science and reading and English. And we need to do a better job of intervening. So that's the data. Before I move on to the strategic plan part of this, any questions about anything that I can answer? And I encourage you to look at that data chart that I included, or come in sometime and I can show you the Link It as a whole. We can go through other things, but if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. Okay, so we this past year, Mr. Vukovic reached out and got the board's approval to work with the National Council on the Education and the Economy. This is a national funded by the federal Department of Education, where they look at research and they basically look at trends in the research and try to identify what the best education systems on earth do and how they've been able to do it. And then they share those findings with teams of school districts, and they lead us through activities designed to really look at our own process and our own system and identify where we're strong and where we could improve. And this is all in an effort to really make our program more efficient, more equitable, meaning it reaches more kids and more across the board. And then, have that expectation be raised for excellence. If we're going to compete on a global stage, we need to improve our student outcomes, and that's pretty basic. So what happened was we got a team of 40 professionals and community members and different stakeholders in a room 8 times last year. And what was really done well, in my opinion, was the diversity in that room. We had administrators, all the administrators were there to participate, and all the counselors were there to participate. Beyond that, we had teachers from all different grade levels. We had community members. We had Dr. Riggs served there as an IUP partner and a board member. And then we had parents and we had students. And not a lot of the people that do this have student voice on these. And we really were blown away by some of the student, perspective that was shared while we were working through these. So it was a really nice cross section of our community. And what they did was they worked us through these different activities to really look, again, compare our system to what other systems are doing in other parts of our country or other parts of the world, and how we can maybe replicate some of their success through system design. During the work, we redefined what college and career ready meant here at Indiana Area School District. We compared those results from all over the world. We looked at test scores from across the world, and we looked at what the highest performing systems the highest scoring schools in the entire world, what they did and not only what their school system looks like, but what their culture looks like, what their politics look like, what their government funding looks like. And we really compared those to our system to see if we could, make any parallels. We defined what equity is. We defined what efficiency would look like in our district, and we defined what excellence would look like. We looked at the challenges and barriers that stand in our way of achieving excellence and efficiency and equity in our district. We looked at the economic impact of our current system in our local economy, which was really important, a really important piece of all this. And we reviewed the practices and curriculum instruction, which I spelled wrong, and assessment. Sorry, Ms. Cinda. Assessment and operations.
Okay, I can't see it.
That's right. I'll fix it before you look at it. Yeah. Well, anyway, we looked for potential areas of growth, and we set priorities. And these are the priorities that we came out of as a team. We looked at collaboration. What collaboration meant was a couple of different things. One was there's this sense that we identified of mistrust really between the teachers and the administration. We were kind of blown away by that, and we had a lot of conversation about why that existed and how we can knock that down and really work toward more collaborative efforts by the administration and teachers. We also looked at the partnerships that we have, the IUP partnerships that we've developed, the partnerships with other agencies and in the community, and how valuable those are, because it really does take a village. And so we identified those areas for more collaboration with our community and between our teachers and administration. We looked at literacy. Literacy has to be a focus. I mean, if you can't read, you can't do anything. So those skills for reading and writing effectively have to remain a focus. We looked at pre-K services. A lot of the school districts, a lot of the school systems that have the highest performing schools have robust pre-K, universal pre-K. We do not. We have a lot of students that participate in pre-K through Head Start programs and private programs, but here the only way you can participate is in those 2 classrooms if you meet the qualifier, which is based on your economic situation. So we would like to long-term look at ways that we can enhance and expand our pre-K services. A rigorous curriculum with high expectations was one. Teacher efficacy and empowerment was another one. And citizenship and behavior, like making sure that our students are that work that we did a few years ago with the social studies rewrite still needs. I mean, we did the right thing there because we put citizenship and civics at the center of every grade level. And that's the right thing to do, because if we are producing students and citizens for this community, we need to focus on that. That can't be pushed aside, something we get to if we get to it. So our priorities: increase collaboration and improve trust between our staff and administration, guaranteed literacy for all students, expansion, alignment of our pre-K services, ensuring that we have a rigorous and aligned curriculum. And our vision that we came out of is to create a culture of shared ownership to support all students in reaching their highest potential by developing a system that maximizes the opportunities for growth and achievement. And that's going to be, what I adopt as the acting superintendent as the focus, as our vision moving forward in all grade levels, based on this work. This is going to go into our comprehensive plan. This is going to be what we focus on. So the next steps, and I'm sorry, I'm going really fast, so ask questions, interrupt me if you want to. The next steps, in order to build that trust and shared ownership and teacher efficacy and empowerment, we are going to move to those, we're going to look for ways to invite them to the table and to not only, we've heard a lot of what they're saying, but we need to hear more of what they're saying. The principals have already started working on ways to empower those teachers to work together. Mrs. Eisenman is putting something into place about VPA time. We're going to pull some teachers off VPA duty so that they can co-plan together, and they rotate in and out. We're looking at different ways in the schedule if we can make it. The teams at the junior high working on this MTSS, work on these intervention programs, will have time to collaborate and plan together if possible. We're going to put systems in place that really give teachers ownership of this. And through that curriculum maintenance process that we have, they're all going to have that ownership of the curriculum, both the written curriculum and the instructed and assessed curriculum.
Wait, can I say
Absolutely.
quick? Because I was thinking when Keith was here and he wants to give the teachers the survey and the one is about leaders. That would be really interesting to see. I mean, I'm assuming that he's going to come, he said he's doing the whole IU, so I'm assuming he's going to combine them, all of the data. But I think it would be really interesting to do something like that with our teachers.
I agree, 100%.
Since that was one of our focuses, and to, what are the areas, like when you look at, this one is the one for authentic leadership, and you might want to use a different one, I don't know. But just admitting mistakes, encouraging everyone to speak their mind. It would be interesting to see how our teachers feel.
Perceive our
Right,
administration,
if they
for sure.
perceive that they are able to speak their mind in a faculty meeting or
100%.
whatever. I think it would be interesting to.
Yeah, we plan to put a survey like that together for the district and at the building levels too, just as feedback, right? And
Right. Yeah, not as evaluative. I mean,
No,
we
not
even, like
evaluative
at
at all.
IUP, we just did one of those 360 surveys. So, I had to pick 3 subordinates, 3 consumers, and 3 peers that did mine. And it was, I got to pick them, and the administration, then upper administration decided yes or no, whether those people were the ones to do it.
That's interesting.
It was really interesting, and the feedback was interesting. But that, even some kind of, it's called a 360 assessment, and I don't know who that was through. But it broke it down into the different categories, like ethical behavior, and all the different categories that you expect of a leader.
Yeah, we are
But I
going to
can
need some help.
share that.
I would love for you to,
I don't
if you
know
don't
where they
mind,
got
if
it.
you have a little more time now that you're not.
I will after June 30th. After June 30th.
But I really would, we would love for you to sit down and help us with that, develop that tool, and, because you were part of the work too, and Mrs. Cunningham as well. I mean, you guys were at that table, you heard some of those conversations that we had, and we think it's important because a lot of those teachers are saying, look, I don't feel heard, and I don't feel seen, and we're talking about doing that for the kids. We have to do it for the teachers, so it is an important step that we're going to implement, if you can help it be.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. And there's lots of, there's, this one's, like he said, is for authentic leadership. There's ones for transformational leadership. There's surveys for almost every, that even if you wanted to pull maybe 5 questions from each.
Yeah, yes.
But I'm
100%.
happy to help with that if you.
Thank you. The curriculum focus, that focus on tier 1, the data I shared about the CKLA pilot showed those inconsistencies, right? We had tremendous growth in one and then no growth in another. We had, tremendous achievement in one and not in another. We really need to dig into the whys behind that. And we need to do it in a collaborative and trust building way, but we need to, give teachers the freedom to teach, but we also have to make sure that they understand that they're also accountable to some of that too. That's their work. And, we need to make sure that there's a balance there of freedom and autonomy or freedom and accountability with that autonomy.
Right. That's what I said. I think as long as they understand, this is what they need to know by the end of kindergarten to go into first grade,
Mhm.
you know, and here's a variety of tools that you can use to get there.
Yep. And the teachers
I think
above
they'll
you
do
are
it.
counting on you doing a good job,
Right.
so they don't have to come do it for you. Absolutely. The completion of the MTSS and the student ownership, engagement, empowerment, that data work that we're going to do at the junior high, we plan to share that data with the students directly. Not only are the teachers going to look at, but we're going to sit down with kids and we're going to say, look, this is where you are on this data, and this is where you need to be, and we need to get you there. And here's how the plan is going to work out, and they're going to become owners of their own data moving forward. Complete the building of the MTSS program report, and will help with that. The community connections, always looking to expand those partnerships, to maintain the partnerships that we have, and to look for new partnerships with those communities that can make our program all the better. And then our behavior and citizenship, we're looking at the board has empowered us to look at standards-based report cards or skills-based report cards. Part of that work is going to be Justin and Tara and the administrative team looking at what kind of citizenship expectations do we have at that, and can we work that in as part of our curriculum, so that we are producing those citizens that we want. The rollout and maintenance of this, we want to do a joint rollout with all the participants of this, or at least some of the key participants of this, rolling this out to the staff in the fall, where they see that it's not just me and Justin telling them what to do, right? This is me sitting next to Paul McHugh, and Erica Aiken, or whoever, insert teacher or counselor name here, to say, look, yeah, this is what we did, and this is why we did, and this is what we're going to focus on, and here's why. Because if we need to build trust, we think that that's going to take a giant step in the right direction when they hear from everybody that was involved. We're going to build subcommittees each building. They're going to form that, improve that collaboration through advisory teams, and then we're going to challenge the administration to come up with those creative solutions like Aaron did, where can we pull people out of this, or can we move this schedule over here so that those teachers will have more time to collaborate and plan with each other. And that really comes from those outside models. All of those high performing schools have steps where the baby teachers, so to speak, are working like this. As we work for the high teachers, the master teachers become mentors for them, and they get freed up sometimes to really help the administration develop those younger teachers, which is what we have in our induction plan, but we don't do a really good job of executing it. We need to do a better job executing it. So our administration challenge is going to be, how do we make that happen? How do we make sure that that promise is being fulfilled, so that not only do we develop teachers, but we retain teachers. Seeing across the state, the teachers are leaving in giant numbers, and it's troubling. So we need to deliver on that promise. And then continued support from NCE is something that we'd like to explore. I know that we just asked for permission to look at where we can cut, every penny that we can cut. However, we did find that experience very, very valuable, and there is some state money that will help offset the cost if we wanted to continue this. I put at your place when you came in a couple of programs that Lenny Sweeney came to present to us about how we could continue this work moving forward. It's something we'd like to explore. We won't spend a penny without your approval, obviously, down the road, but we do want to look at the cost, and if we can find a program, because we weren't perfectly, the one program wasn't a perfect fit, the other program that they're offering isn't a perfect fit. Lenny talked about maybe customizing something. If we can come up with a solution that we can afford, we'd like to bring it forward, and we'd like you to support it if we can do it. That's really it. I mean, we just, we want to let you know that, yes, the data is not great. Yes, we're aware of we're already working on it, and we have a relatively decent strategic plan to move forward. And we hope that you support it. And that's it, Mr. Harley, as far as NCE is concerned.
No motion would require.
The only motion would require is if I bring back the proposal for NCE to continue to support. Other than that, it's all internal.
We'll just review this as part of my.
Perfect.
Item 2 needs to be done in executive session.
I'm sorry?
Item 2, security.
No, I don't think this needs to be done in security, but we can punt on it. We haven't have to make any motion or anything yet. I encourage you to look at that. real quick, that came to us from Dan Roan. The people that schedule our umpires and referees were asking us why we don't have security at certain events.
Sorry. I would rather discuss this. in
Oh, you want to discuss
executive
it?
session.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And we're.
You want me to take it off? You want me to take it off
I want you to
the?
take it off this. And we'll
It's
discuss
off.
it in executive session.
Yes, sir. That's it, then, I think. Did we cover everything? No, we bounced around.
Yes, you got them all.
You got it.
Okay. I appreciate you guys hanging in there for a very, very long meeting. I appreciate it. We don't have to do this again until August 7th, so.
You gave everybody 2 blank sheets of paper with your packet, so here's.
It was for notes. It was for notes.
No,
Was it
that's
with,
all over my
uh,
agenda.